Yo, what is up, guys? How's it going? Hope you're having a wonderful evening. And we back with the great Mercy debate, which actually I've just realized right now I did not change the title. Everything changed everything else, but didn't change the title. Anyways, we move on. Now, it is a great day for me personally, as this Man City shirt will attest. My football team has won the Premier League, for those of you who are completely oblivious. And although there was no quadruples to be had today, I do have a quadruple of guests on the podcast today. So let me introduce them without much delay. So right to the next of me on the top here is EeveeA, who is now becoming a regular of the podcast. Evie, how you doing?
Hello, I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. And now in the bottom right on your side is Niandra. Niandra, what up?
Hello.
That's a very formal hello. Hello, I'm here for the
nervous.
business. I'm here for business, nothing else.
It's gonna be fun.
I hope so. I've assembled the panel, the elite Mercy panel, and continuing that panel in the bottom left of your screens is Skiesti. Skiesti, what up?
Hi.
All right.
I don't know what to say. I'm Ski. Hi.
Hello, hello. And yeah, we're experimenting with some awesome technology that EeveeA has kind of lent me to, which is, I think it's called fungi. Fugi, not
tech.
fungus. So what you're seeing is these guys' pictures light up as they talk. And on that note, I'm going to test now. Somnus, are you back from the bathroom?
Yeah, also I want to say, Evie, you look really cute today.
No, you.
Oh.
Very wholesome, very wholesome. I want some name calling later and some heavy disagreements.
That'll happen. Oh no, Somnus's reactive image.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix that right now, so don't worry. So while we do that, chat, let us get right into it. So to start off with, I just want to get, because there's 5 of us, there's going to be a lot of opinions, a lot of stuff to get through. So to start with, I just want to get a rough stance of where you guys stand in particular on the topic of Mercy. So just to tell you guys on stream what the show order, what's the show order of show, run of show is going to be. We're going to talk firstly. Yeah, just what we're going to do, basically. What we're going to do, we're going to start off talking about Mercy and her state in 5v5, particularly Overwatch 2. Now, obviously, there's plenty of discussion to be had on Mercy in Overwatch 1, but we know where the game is going, so I think it makes more sense to focus on Overwatch 2. So we'll have some thoughts from these guys about how they see Mercy in Overwatch 2, 5v5 environment. Then we're going to talk about the Superjump change that just came in before the beta went down, because that caused a lot of controversy. That a lot of people had a lot of opinions, myself included, and I'm eager to hear these guys' opinions. And then we're going to move on to more wide-reaching topics, namely talking about just the perception of Mercy in the community, how people view her. Is she the target of any particular hate, disproportionate hate, perhaps minority targeted hate as well? So we'll get to all of that, but first, like I said, I want to get all you guys' just base opinion. If you can give me a 1-sentence summary to start with on Mercy in 5v5, so I can just so we all know where you roughly stand. We'll go with EeveeA first.
God damn, that's a lot. Yeah, I think Mercy in 5v5 shows that in this case, I think Mercy in 5v5 is more noteworthy because I think we need all the other heroes in the game to get touched up first before we can assess Mercy. I see Mercy as like the Tracer character where other heroes are based around the balance of that character. Where I'd say, Reinhardt is a benchmark for tanks, Tracer's a benchmark for DPS. And I think Mercy is a benchmark for supports and less noticeably so. And so, but in that statement, I think that Mercy needs to be touched up last among the supports and based around it.
Very interesting. A lot to unpack, as we will. I'm going to head to Niandra first, though. Niandra, your sort of 1-sentence-ish summary on Mercy in 5v5.
Personally, I actually had a really good time with Mercy in the beta. I kind of just feel like we have to wait until we see her in a competitive environment to properly decide if she works in 5v5.
Oh, okay. So that was the end of the sentence. I thought it was going to be more.
Sorry.
No, it's good. Okay, great. Thank you. And Skiesti, what about yourself?
So I think that Mercy in 5v5, I mean, before the Superjump ability that they tried at the very end, she was pretty much just the exact same. She just had a different kind of environment to be in. And for me, like, at first she felt pretty okay, but then the more I played her, the more I just felt that she was lacking.
Interesting. Lacking. I like that as a sort of one sentence take or a one word takeaway. And Somnus, round us off. What's your kind of one sentence or a couple sentence summary of Mercy in 5v5?
I think my opinion might be a bit different because like I play a really aggressive Mercy, and like I had a lot of fun playing like a super aggressive Mercy in 5v5, because if you can take care of yourself like properly, like you live for so long. And even if my DPS dies, I felt like I like the style of like pocket Mercy going into the backline and like chilling, you know, it can work, but I feel like she's more like she has a lot of self-sustain. Like I felt pretty powerful, honestly.
Nice.
May I add to that?
Go ahead.
I think it was very noticeable for anybody who had watched the oh my god, what was the event that you did?
Fancy
The,
Overwatch.
No, not fancy. Fantasy Overwatch. Yeah. Where like Somnus, I think, just fucking killed it, and I think Somnus showed the best of what Mercy was in Overwatch 2 as it is right now. I think it was very noticeable that she was utilizing the full extent of Mercy's kit and getting the most value out of it possible. So it makes sense that Somnus has a bit of a different view on Mercy in this case, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned it because I was actually going to bring it up myself. I've been editing the Fantasy Overwatch highlights, and I got to that point on Midtown. You guys will see, those of you unaware, obviously the Fantasy Overwatch tournament that I hosted not too long ago. The video for that will be going up on YouTube soon, but one of those games was on Midtown, Somnus's team versus I think it was Flats' team, or technically Deku's team. It's so confusing when one team was called Flats Justice, but yeah, so Somnus was glocking quite a lot, I would say. And actually I brought up Skiesti's video on this as well, so I kind of encourage one of them to kind of maybe take the lead on this, because Skiesti, I saw your video talking about how with, you know, one less player in the lobby, you felt like actually you're not usually a Glock Mercy, but you found yourself pulling the Glock out more. So maybe you want to lead in, and then Somnus, you can chime in on your kind of feelings of glocking it up.
Yeah, sure. So, if anyone has seen me play Mercy before, you know that I am not the type to pull out my pistol, like, ever, except for in, like, very rare self-defense cases, or, like, if I really have to be the one to, like, pressure someone. But in most cases, I really refrain from doing that, and I play much more passively. But going into Overwatch 2, it felt like I had more value if I did pull out my pistol sometimes, and I did, like, go for the kills that I normally wouldn't, just because there was less protection on those, like, lower, like, 200 HP targets. Like, if I'm in Valk, or if I'm really, you know, dedicated, like, who's gonna stop me? It was kind of what I thought in some of those cases. Like, you I just had more free reign to be more on the offensive, which was, like, a really weird style switch for me.
I think that's amplified by ML7 showing off how much more potential Ana gets with DPS Ana.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, actually, great that you kind of chimed in there, Evie. I was going to say as well, with five of us, guys, feel free to chime in. If I'm saying something, interrupt. I won't necessarily always be able to give you full turns, so feel free to hop in and out. And on that note, Somnus, the Glock queen herself, I mean, how do you feel about the Glock? You felt more powerful, you said.
So I think I'm not sure about Ski and Niandra, but I know Evie and me, we played like Mercy for a very long time, like since 5-man res at least. And even then, I was like really aggressive. Like I felt like targets like, for example, Zenyatta, Widowmaker, for me were like really like kind of prey. Like it's gonna sound brutal, but like really. So especially now in 5v5, where there's usually only one person left on point, or like they just don't have the protection because there's like so much going on, you have such an easier time to just go in and like get a couple of kills. Like I think being able to like turn around games like that is like one of the greatest things about supports. Like if Ana hits like a great nade and it starts DPSing those targets and gets them down, like you've seen ML7 do it, it's crazy. Zenyatta can like decimate an entire team, and like I feel like Mercy less, but Lucio can also DPS. Like Mercy is probably like the least DPSy like supports from them, but like if you pull out the Glock in the right moment, I think you can actually make a difference in the team fight, like for sure. Like if you're I don't know, if your target just died, like pull out the Glock, kill the person who just killed your target, and just res afterwards. Like that's what I think. Don't go for the res immediately, because chances are they're gonna kill you anyway.
I mean,
And-
it's also, I think, an aspect of Mercy that people often forget as well is waiting to res to let your teammates get their cooldown before they get resed. Because if you res somebody immediately, they might not have the cooldown that they used right before death. So it's just in general, late resing I feel like is more important in Overwatch 2.
There's so
Rezzing
much
in
depth.
general is a problem, I feel like.
Yes, I was just going to bring that up. There's so much depth to this because obviously one of the subtle things is the timer went down from 10 to 8 seconds for how long people take to respawn, which in some ways is a soft nerf to Mercy,
10.
right?
Yeah, it is actually 10.
So it is?
You're thinking of early in the alpha, it was 8
Yeah.
for a bit there, as well as we had a dynamic respawn timer. It's 10 in
Oh.
Overwatch 2 currently.
Okay, well,
And
it just shows you how
devs
long
claimed
it's been.
devs claimed that was a bug, but I think that was just something they were testing internally that made it in the build.
Okay, well, never mind what I was saying. I'm gonna head over to Niandra so they can sound a bit smarter than I can. Niandra, do you feel happy with the idea that the Glock is coming out more? Like I know you also kind of had a video that said that you were kind of concerned about Mercy.
Okay, so I really struggle to aim with Mercy because I play Mercy at a very high sensitivity to look around a lot. So every time I have to bring out the Glock, I'm like afraid because I know I'm going to embarrass myself. But in the beta, I also played a lot of Anna, and I thought Anna was like amazing. And with her, I DPS'd a lot, and I had a really good time with that. So even though my aim with Mercy is bad, I can definitely understand where people are coming from here. And yeah, I can definitely see that being fair enough.
Gotta
But
love
do
the
you
way that
kind
you're
of-
articulating things. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, do you feel like stylistically though, is that a direction you prefer, or would you rather her strength come in a different way?
It was Andrew Yannick who suggested this to me, that Mercy should have 2 separate sensitivity sliders, like a sensitivity for when your beam is out, and then sensitivity for when the pistol is out. And I would really, really like to see that if if Val Mercy does become more of a thing.
I
to-
suggested this to Jeff Goodman in December 2016. He said it didn't seem useful.
Maybe they could like take a look at that, because I think it would be really useful.
It would be.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe this is a stupid statement, but how difficult could that be to implement? Like, it couldn't be
very.
that difficult. So
Literally, think
why
of
not give the option?
Think of FPS games that have different the different amount that you're aiming based on your
The scope.
optical zoom of your scope.
Yeah, if you're like
It's the
ADSing.
same difference as swapping it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
Yeah, I
a certain.
mean-
Go ahead, Ski.
Sorry. I was gonna say, I mean, when you're rocking that like 1600 DPI and like 30 in-game sends, like it's a little hard to swap and like actually get value with your pistol.
You
So
gotta aim with your movement instead of your crosshair.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love the sort of depth you guys all bring to this, but I do want to kind of lead Skiesti over, because obviously again, Skiesti, you're someone who doesn't usually Glock.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that kind of increased emphasis on it, or is it kind of philosophically not really vibe with you?
Honestly, it is not really my thing. I get a lot of people whenever I end up talking about Mercy, everyone always makes change suggestions and whatnot when you get on the topic. And I swear the one that I hear the most often is, I want Mercy to do more damage. Why? You have like 6 other support heroes if you want to do damage that can do damage so much better than her, and that is actually like more so built into their kit, whereas Mercy is more of like an enabler that has that option if she wants to, but I don't really think, like for me personally and my playstyle, I don't think that, like obviously there are situations where you should use it and it's good, but I think that it just takes away from her as a hero and like what she's supposed to be doing and what her role actually is, to like be encouraging that like more aggressive, more DPSy playstyle just doesn't quite fit.
And that's
Yeah.
certainly. Go ahead, Evie.
So the thing for me is that I don't think you know my view on this, SVB. I fucking despise Mercy's pistol.
really?
I hate it. And I typically I've been a Mercy pistol hater, and I fucking hate Mercy. Like, okay, I'm also slightly biased because I'm the Mercy player to many people. If a Mercy sees me in their match, their goal for the rest of the match is to Glock me. And so, like, I'm also biased in that regard, where I'm just fucking tired of that shit. But ironically enough, I do think it has a place. I think it has periodic value. I think it covers some blind sights in her kit. I think that there's many nuances to her having a pistol. I do think one of the biggest things that I would change, like to amplify why and how I think about the pistol, is how I would explain this change that I would suggest of Mercy's pistol and Valk shouldn't have infinite ammo. It has infinite ammo, which is it gets people to tunnel vision to Glock during the entire Valk, and you. I think instead of amping the damage or having infinite ammo, it should be double the fire rate in Valk. So you'll like pull out the pistol, burn through a clip really quickly, and then swap back to beam. And for 2 seconds while your beam is out, it automatically reloads. So that would encourage swapping back and forth during Valk. And it would also make it to where somebody doesn't use an entire Valk for just pistol. So it's like that kind of amplifies I think it has a place, but I think people need to swap like more. I think especially because Mercy players aren't trained typically in knowing when the value of having your pistol out or not, just pulling it out at all, that you need to almost train yourself when you need to know that you're not getting enough value, just swap back. And so like I think that it's most of the time a distraction more than anything, but it does bring so much more value. And like others have said, like I almost feel like it's my job to deal with Widow a lot of the time because it's just so easy to do. And so like that's kind of like the periodic value I'm talking about, where I think in Overwatch 2, yeah, we will finish people off more as Mercy, but that I think that it just amplifies that her kit is going to feel in a way more clunky than before.
That's a really interesting idea, kind of softly, and I always like the idea of softly kind of guiding the players to what maybe you should do rather than forcing them or completely denying them an option. So Somnus, let's take it to you. How do you feel about an option like that? Do you feel like people do Glock too much? Like it's almost easy to fall in the trap of kind of Glocking too much and spending your entire Valkyrie Glocking when value could have been found elsewhere?
Yeah, so I like to like switch between beam and then the Glock. I like to like beam until I like kind of get close to the Widow or whatever, because like chances are like there's no one close enough for me to like fly to anyway. So like I like to keep the beam on and like fly low so the Widow doesn't spot me, and then fly up like into the face. Like you don't have to like pull out the Glock and fly forwards to the Widow, because like then the Widow will also know you're going for her, you know? Like if I have the beams out, I can also like kind of make her feel safe when she's not.
Go into the radar.
Yeah, I kind of. I also think like the issue is like the pocket style of Mercy in Overwatch 1 is really viable because you have 2 tanks. Like you're kind of in a safe bubble. You know what I'm saying? The problem is in a 5v5 environment where like there's so many openings on the maps, so many sightlines, and there's so much happening. You don't find the time and place to like only hold right click on the guy who's like, you know, popping off or whatever. Like often chances are you're like trying to fight for your own life, or like you're trying to save your other support who is often a Zenyatta, like a really, really frail character. Like although after he got the kick and 250 HP, ain't no one gonna tell me Zenyatta is frail. Okay, like don't tell me Zen is frail anymore. He's not. He's a menace. But yeah, the 5v5 environment changes playstyle, I feel like, for a lot of characters actually. Some characters not. Some playstyles change. Like I think it's the environment that's like changing it. Res is awful in 5v5 to me because I don't find the time to safely res. There's a chance I'm gonna get ambushed any second from somewhere else. Like I find it hard to res in 5v5.
There's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack. So the mention of res, we'll definitely get to res and kind of the wider kit as well. But I want to dwell a little bit on that point of feeling less safe. And Niandra, did you feel less safe? Did you feel like it was kind of almost forcing you to play differently and unable to pocket, as Somnus said, because you felt like you couldn't afford to just stay on one person like that?
It's yes and no, because obviously you have one less person to fly to, but you have one less person after you. I think the new maps have a lot that Mercy can work with in terms of like prop bouncing and positioning, and honestly, the support like health regen is very, very useful as well.
Mm-hmm. But in general, did you feel like it was kind of forcing it, you to play in a way that was unnatural almost or different?
I honestly don't know, to be honest. Yeah, I'll come back to you on that one.
No, totally fair. Skiesti, how about you?
So it was kind of weird going from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 because I'd like to say that I am a Mercy player who is good at playing environmental cover and like relying more on myself to survive, and I'd say that I'm actually quite good at staying alive. But it was really weird in Overwatch 2 where, even though I had that kind of foundation, it felt like there were too many openings. It felt like you were too just like vulnerable. It felt like, sometimes you couldn't even catch up to your DPS, or sometimes they would line of sight you and then you never get back to them because of their DPS buff passive, right? And like it just felt really weird and clunky, and I did feel like I had to put even more of an emphasis into surviving, and even when you did survive for much longer than, like, someone should, you'd end up dying in some way anyway because supports were less likely to heal their other support because of the support passive, right? So it was like you didn't get care, you didn't get any kind of like protection, your DPS were running you, you were pretty much like on your own and you just had to make do. And it did feel like it was a bit more of a struggle.
Mm-hmm. And this is, I guess, this aligns with your kind of idea of feeling somehow lacking in 5v5 is, I think, the word you use. But this is the concern that a lot of people have brought to me before and after Overwatch 2 came out. A lot of people were like, because here's the sort of the play of the field, right? People were very concerned about the state of support going into Overwatch 2, and then when it happened, people were doubly concerned. They're like, supports are dying very fast, they feel underpowered, and the counter narrative have been, and I've kind of pushed this myself, where it's like, well, adapt. This is a new world. You're gonna have to fight for yourself more. You're gonna have to kind of contribute to the killing aspect of the game. But a lot of Mercy players in particular have come back to me and said, well, I didn't pick Mercy to do those things. I didn't pick Mercy to be contributing to Glocking or DPSing or even actively dueling people or helping in that aspect. I picked Mercy because I like to enable other people. And I've seen a lot of people have this kind of concern that play style is almost dying. The idea, both in support at large, but in Mercy in particular, the idea of just I'm enabling someone and that's the way I like to play is dying. Is that a sentiment you agree with, Evie?
Yes and no. I think it goes into the game design philosophy for Overwatch when it comes to like it's Blizzard struggles with, is it okay for a hero to have a niche versus a hero must be always viable? Blizzard really struggles with that, and I think Mercy, it has become very much so an example of that, where you can't, she was always viable for 2 years, and like I could get into 2.0 being a mistake in and of itself. Not a mistake, but handled poorly. We had 70 nerfs in a row. And they weren't decisive enough. They took too long, and it almost it added to Mercy hate, and I think that it was justifiable hate, but not, but like, yeah, slightly off track. But the point being is that like I think that we're in a situation where Mercy is now, her wings have been so clipped in regards to the power of her kit passively, like the passive numbers across her kit have been nerfed, right? That it almost feels like a ghost of what it was originally meant to be, but that also it doesn't really fit into any direct need. It doesn't fit direct utility. It doesn't fit direct primary healing. It doesn't fit direct off healing or speed. And so I think that then when you bring into whether or not you want to pistol, it just brings in yet another clunky aspect to her kit that doesn't feel like it fits in at this point, right? And so I think that it's okay for Mercy to be a niche. In fact, I kind of almost want her to be, but that she's a niche in a way that not that she has a place, but that she has no place. I think that the place that she has is enabling frail characters that also have poor designs. I would argue. Like I think Farah is a kind of a rough spot. I think Echo is just Echo. She's strong, so you get value from enabling. But I think, say, Cassidy, where now without stun needs like enjoys a pocket even more, right? So I'd argue that Mercy is almost an enabler, but not to good characters. I'd say she's almost a good enabler to characters that are also imbalanced, or rather, also clunky.
And that kind of feels very weird to think about, because if the idea is that I like the mental image of like this camaraderie between two heroes that have nowhere else to go, but it does also then create a bit of an awkward situation if, and this is why people dislike, for example, Farah Mercy in their games, right? Because it's like on their own, these heroes are fine. Put them together, these heroes suddenly taking over the game, and they become almost uncounterable in some extent, and in some ways, it's almost doubling down on the bad design, if we want to put it that way, of one over the other. Which is, so that's a very interesting thought. Is that a thought you kind of vaguely agree with, Niandra? And again, do you have any sort of thoughts on that idea of this play style of Mercy evaporating, where, you know, she kind of enables people and that's kind of going away?
I know EeveeA has always had this idea that instead of damage boosting the strongest player, you should damage boost the weakest to bring them up to power levels, right? And I'm not sure
Well, not
how
necessarily, but more specifically, the better player probably knows how to position better and can survive. The worst player probably needs a bit extra healing to not die to chip damage, is more specifically what I talk about.
I could never tell if I agreed with that, but I do think it is like a very
I'd rather them not being in the spawn room is the way to put it.
yeah, that's fair. I think what a lot of people do seem to forget is that Mercy became a pocket healer because she got that healing nerf a few years back. And, you know, like, for the first few years of Overwatch, 99% of Mercy players would just underuse damage boost and heal fully health allies and stuff. One thing I was thinking is I think it would be really beneficial in Overwatch 2 if Mercy had a change where she got less ult charge from healing, but more ult charge from damage boost. I don't know if y'all agree with that, but I feel like it would discourage heal botting in a way that doesn't hurt people who already damage boost. And I don't know, I kind of feel like Mercy might end up healing less in Overwatch 2 because you've got like the support passive and everyone is a bit self-sufficient. So I don't know if what do you think of that?
Can I chip in here?
Yeah, I was actually going to take it to you, Somnus, so go ahead.
So I think Mercy is pretty much like still doing the same thing. Like you can still pocket someone. I would actually argue you can damage boost people way more because there's one less tank, there's less shields, and the support passive makes it so you don't have to like go and babysit your support as much, you know? I feel like she can still play that style, but the issue is also like if you go on the flank with your soldier, there's also going to be people on you, and you have to know how to move around and like place yourself, especially on maps with a lot of verticality. You know, like, you can't just be holding your soldier's hand, walk with him, and think like he's going to kill everyone that's going to come and try to kind of like in League of Legends terms, you know, gank you. You know, like that's not gonna happen. Like I think Mercy was very safe in Overwatch 1 because she functioned really well, especially in bunker comps, if you guys remember, like with the Bastion. Like, what are they gonna do? You sit behind two shields and you're holding right click on a Bastion, you know? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, holding right click on an Ashe that's like 3,000 miles away on high ground. Like, how are they even gonna reach you? Like, you were very safe, but like, you're not as safe to do that anymore. Like, if you want to pocket someone, you have to keep in mind that you have to use your movement to like get out of sticky situations. Like you can't just rely on your team to be just there. Like that's not gonna be.
Could I argue that was the circumstances of the beta where almost cleave and direct damage characters were the meta?
Yes.
So that influences our view on that?
You mean I
Like
would say
like
so.
Doomfist,
Like so
like Orisa getting close, you know, Reinhardt. Yeah, the comps with a single tank being, and then your tanks being closer, that encourages the whole team themselves to be closer together. Which I'd argue is one of the biggest reasons why I felt weaker in Overwatch 2 is because, as you mentioned, the one less player to fly to, but that when teams are more clumped together, Mercy is more vulnerable.
Oh, I didn't feel like my teams were super duper clumped, to be honest. Like, if you remember, like I loved the comp. For example, Booger and my team played
Booger.
on what was a Circuit Royale. Like we were pretty spread. Like we had Booger like right above the spawn door. I was standing at the stairs with the soldier, and then we had another DPS in the backline, and Anna was playing really far back. Like I didn't feel like we were super clumped, and then we
No,
could
but
like
that's what I'm saying is like you're proving my point of like it's comp dependent.
it is. I mean, it's always comp dependent or not.
Yes, but I'm saying it's that comp dependency feels amplified in Overwatch 2, I think was the point I was trying to make.
I think
Is
so.
where like it feels more cut and dry on whether or not
Yeah.
she's safe or not.
Yeah, it does. That is very true. Yeah, it does. I mean,
Now, Go ahead, Somnus.
I mean, also on the matter of damage boost, I just wanted to mention one thing. I think Mercy is the only support hero where people poke at each other for stats, for damage boost stats in particular. I
Yeah,
don't
it's become
see.
elitist,
Yeah, it's become such an elitist thing.
which makes no sense because it's
It
all
makes no
contextual.
sense. Like it makes absolutely no sense, you know? Like I don't think like I think the pocket style of Mercy very viable, but you should not tell someone off because they have 200 less damage amplified than you on average. Maybe they're just playing more aggressive, or maybe I don't know, they just didn't get the chance to like pocket like a really good like it's
Yeah,
so
if
odd to
fights are
me.
more decisive, that's less
Yeah, it's
damage
so
boosted.
odd to me.
It lacks all context in like if fights are more decisive, you're going to be less damage boosting. If you're duoed with somebody who's a DPS and they're playing soldier, you're going to be doing more damage than say damage boosting a widow, you know, or it depends on who you're damage boosting, who you're playing against, who you're playing with. Are you the main healer? Are you not the main healer? Are you able to have that free time to damage boost? Are you rolling them? All that is contextual on whether or not you're doing that amount of damage amplified per 10, and that's just like anybody who's comparing stats in that way just lacks any form of like nuance that I just listed.
Yeah. It happens only with
It sounds,
Mercy, and I was
sounds
thinking
more on
about
them
it. Yeah.
than us. So.
I was
In-
thinking about it, how silly that entire like thing is. You don't see Lucius like comparing the environmental kills and then like I don't know, attacking each other. Like you didn't get 2 environmental kills, I had 3. Like you know, it's very odd.
I definitely have noticed this. And in one of my earlier videos, I remember I said something along the lines of like, a Mercy should never have gold healing. And I don't know, I kind of regretted that, or like at least regretted not using more vague context-based terms, I guess.
Never deal in absolutes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, Mercy could have gold healing, and no, Mercy might have silver healing, and it's not an issue, is what I kind of wish I'd said, instead of like, no, you must not have gold healing as Mercy.
Well, that's the internet, Niandra. You ever make an empirical statement, someone's gonna hold that over you for the rest of your life. But
Literally.
gets the clicks, then why not? Now, I mean, this is a really fascinating discussion. But it's been very polite, and I want to really shake it up now. I want to really shake it up because I want to ask a more spicy question, which is that you guys have alluded to the idea of the pocket playstyle. Should the pocket playstyle exist? Full stop. Because here's again, I'm gonna lay the scene and let you guys battle it out. Most people really hate the pocket playstyle. At least I would say most non-Mercy players hate the pocket playstyle. They hate the idea, both as a player but also conceptually. Conceptually, they hate the idea that someone could be a healer who can pocket someone else and they kind of pocket them to victory. And also, I think players on an individual level hate the idea of going up against someone who's being pocketed, right? Because obviously most people play solo. They're solo, they go up against a pocket Ashe, a pocket Pharah, whatever it is. Oh, I can't kill her, it's 2v1, GG, your team's flaming you, you're mad, your mother's crying in the background, it's all hell is broken loose. So should the pocket playstyle exist? And if not, what should it be replaced by? And I'll go to Skiesti first.
So Okay, I feel like I have a lot of thoughts on this, so I'll
Mhm.
just kind of start somewhere. So I prefer Mercy in her pocket style compared to her main healer style. I thought playing her as a main healer just wasn't very interesting for me, and that's also taking away healing that your other support could be getting to get their ultimates quicker. And I, I don't know. The Overwatch community has this idea that if someone is pocketed, then they are literally unkillable, and that Mercy is somehow a free win. And I, I'm always so confused by that because if you think that, literally try playing Mercy yourself for like a week and see where that gets you. See if you get to GM instantly. Like I never understand that idea that people have going around that it's literally just impossible to win against because like it's really not. But like I'm not sure what else I would want to see for her instead of like this pocket play style. But if the options are, you know, she's either a main healer or she's like a pocket, I much prefer being able to pocket, and I feel like going a little bit back to Niandra's comment earlier, and I kind of wanted to chime in on this, but I didn't want to interrupt. But uh, making it so that damage boost does more alt charge than healing does, because right now, even when you are playing Mercy as a damage boost pocket, if the enemy Mercy is playing her and doing like a little bit more healing, even though you are more effectively, so to speak, doing your job, she'll end up getting Valk before you, and then she'll have Valk for the fight, but you're still working on getting it because you've mainly been damage boosting and not really picking up that much on healing. So
Is this an
in
Overwatch 1 perspective or an Overwatch 2 perspective?
first one was Overwatch 2 perspective, and then that last point is Overwatch 1 perspective, but I feel like especially translating that over into Overwatch 2, uh, there's okay, the way
I
that
say
I was
that
playing Mercy. Oh,
I say that because I think the reason why you're not getting as much ult charge while damage boosting is because most of the time when damage boosting, say somebody who's a damage over time dealer, is they're shooting a fucking shield. You get ult
okay, well,
charge from amplified damage dealt, not
yeah.
amplified damage.
Overwatch 2 perspective though is like the way that I was still playing mostly as a pocket, and because of the support passive, I didn't have to peel around for my second healer anymore, really. Like they were mostly fine on their own, which allowed you to actually commit better with your DPS, and your second healer would have less to worry about because they've only got one tank, and they have an ability to heal themselves, first of all, and then they have their passive regen. So they were pretty much independent with each other, and as long as they worked well together, then like it was fine. So as Mercy, you would be much more able to pocket, and I think, you know, you're less likely to heal as much in Overwatch 2, so having that ability for damage boost to give you more ult charge when you're not going to be doing as much healing would be pretty beneficial for her.
Two things I just want to quickly add. One is feel free to interrupt at any point. You know, you ski shied away, but feel free, like I said. Second thing is to finish off your point. You said, you know, it's actually, you know, you can deal with someone being pocketed. What would be your solution for someone who's like, well, how do I, Skiesti, how do I deal with someone who's getting pocketed?
I don't know. I feel like that's kind of
Situational.
yeah. Yeah, like that's a hard question to answer because it is
It's like
situational
asking how
depending
do you
on
kill
what's being
somebody in
pocketed.
Overwatch. It's like, okay, well you got
Yeah. Like
I mean, keep in mind, pocketing means you're fighting, like, you could be fighting a 2v1. You know, if you fight a 2v1 of not Mercy, you might struggle just as much.
So it's like, it's the
I think
player
that's worth keeping
advantage
in
is the
mind.
problem.
I think that'll definitely be part of it and, you know, worth keeping in mind.
So do you have a kind of an issue with the pocket playstyle? Are you happy with it, Niandra?
To be honest, I pretty much just agree with Skiesti, where it's like, if the choice is going back to the main healer or staying as a pocket character, I kind of do prefer. I think there's a lot more nuance with damage boost and a lot more depth to it than Mercy's healing, especially when Mercy's healing is so plain. You just press you just press a button for it. The other thing is, there is a difference between like a Mercy who primarily uses damage boost versus a Mercy that hard pockets someone, and I do personally think the former is the most interesting. And I know the community has like suggested ideas where if you damage boost a certain target for over X amount of seconds, it gets weaker and stuff, and like maybe that would be interesting. Maybe start damage boost better, but then it gets weaker over time to kind
I think
of
that was
help
that
with
was
both.
me.
I
with
think
the
that
beam
was
degeneration.
you.
With the beam degeneration. Although it seemed in
Yeah.
practice, it was one of those things where you throw an idea out and you're not sure how it's going
Yeah.
to work. And I feel like in practice it didn't work as well as I envisioned in my mind. It just felt bad for Mercy players, is what I gathered, because we tested it, didn't we, in the Overwatch 2 patch, and people generally were like, it just feels really bad. But Somnus, where do you stand? We haven't heard from you in a while. Should the pocket playstyle exist?
I mean, honestly, like, I think there's different playstyles that can be done, like, on Mercy. For me, I personally play the main support style, which in the competitive sense is like me calling out a lot in voice, looking around, because I don't have to focus on hitting my shots. I don't have to. I have a lot of view with my verticality, where I can give my team intel that could be important. I could be ult tracking and stuff, whereas other people couldn't. Like, I talk a lot in voice. I'm not sure how's it with you guys, but I talk a lot in voice. I try to communicate, and that's why I like Mercy, like, as a main support. Like, I'll pocket my DPS, but I'm not gonna go out of my way to like hold right click on this guy and like they run into the backline and like, we're like Bonnie and Clyde or something. That's not my thing. Like, that's not my thing. I like her as a main support, the way you would also play Lucia, kind of. Like, look around, call out things, communicate and stuff. Like, the pocket style is not really my thing. Like, in that sense, like the Bonnie and Clyde sense. And that's the issue, because a lot of people are not annoyed at the pocket style that is the average pocket style, where you just hold right click like whenever possible, but like they're annoyed at the pocket style that is the Bonnie and Clyde pocket style, I like to call, where like you basically get put on a leash and like walk around with the DPS and like only right click on them. And I gotta say, it's actually interesting, because if you guys know League of Legends, there is a character that is similar to Mercy in a sense that it's a pocket. It's called Yumi. It's a fucking cat, okay? So you can
Sweet.
sit on a target and like pocket this target, and Yumi is equally hated in the League community as Mercy is. Like, this sort of like like sitting on a target and like amplifying them to the point, like, it's very hated. I'm not sure why, but I can see that there's like maybe even
They're both seen as leech characters.
kinda.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Leeching on
I think it comes from this place of feeling like the person who's doing it is taking so much less skill than someone doing it of their own, like, doing their own volition, like doing their own thing. Which is actually interesting, and I don't know how true this is, because I can't say I'm super into the Dota scene anymore, but there's a character in Dota called Io who's also the same. He does not have any like potential threat of his own. He's just like a little floating wisp. I don't know what his pronouns are actually. Its own. But it's actually considered quite a skillful character from what I gather, which, as Boger is chiming in chat, like, it is a very difficult character, but it's also the same idea. It's like essentially it just sits with one person and gives its life literally to the person it's pocketing. So I guess the defense in chat is that, well, Io is a very difficult character, but that leads me very nicely to a sort of another leading question, which is that does a lot of the hate, perhaps, I don't know about Yumi, but certainly for Mercy, come from the fact that people perceive her as an easy character when we could talk about this pocket playstyle? Like, it's easy to do. As Skiesti, you kind of alluded to this yourself, where you were like, people think it's really easy, and you kind of were saying, well, you try playing Mercy, but it is a sort of charge labeled at the character.
I think that, and I'm sure this term gets thrown around a lot when we talk about Mercy, because, I mean, it's true. She has a low skill floor and a high skill ceiling. To pick up Mercy and play her if you were a beginner, I mean, it's easy enough, right? You put your beam on somebody and you fly around here or there. But to actually understand the nuances of Mercy and to master her movement, to be really good at surviving, to make those decisions that you have to make in split seconds, to do the shot calling, to be aware, to have that game sense, to do all of those things and to do them very well all at the same time, like that takes skill. Like, yeah, she's easy to pick up, but she's one of those hard to master heroes. Everyone says that she's easy and oh, you play Mercy, like, you know, that's, it's not impressive or whatever, but I don't know. I feel like that's so weird to me that people think that she's easy. And if you think she's easy, you try it. You go out there, you get into these like a GM 4400 or whatever lobbies, and you try to do it. See how far you get. I've said that I would probably pay to see a DPS player to try an unranked to GM with Mercy solo queue, only Mercy, and see how well they can actually do, because some of the DPS players or some of the players in general that pick up Mercy that say, oh, she's easy, they literally look like they're flying around with one wing. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, she's not as easy as you think she is. She's really not. Low skill floor, high skill ceiling.
Well, where do you guys think?
Mm.
Go ahead, Evie.
So on the does she fit in as a Mercy pocket? I could talk all fucking day, but I will try to be concise. I think first of all, what's a pocket? I think that's the most important question. What is pocketing? I think people misinterpret that a lot. I think pocketing is more like your default role on the team is to blue beam your DPS. That I would say would be pocketing, right? And that's the thing you default and primarily do. I would say that's pocketing. I've always advocated for the dinner dash playstyle of Mercy. That's most enjoyable. That's most effective in my opinion. Dinner dash playstyle would be, say your teammates are dinner tables and you are waiting each table evenly. You're trying to make sure that everybody's needs are met. You're trying to enable each person on the team to do the best at any given moment. I think that my most satisfying matches are always the times where everybody felt pocketed. I love the times where like my teammates I would have 4 people say thank you for the pocket, and then they're all looking at each other like, wait, you felt like you got pocketed too? It's like that's when I feel Mercy has her most value, is when everybody feels like they're being kept up, everybody's getting their needs met at any given moment, monitoring, hey, that person's having a skirmish with another person on the other side, I can enable them to win that fight and then go back and help my tank win that 1v1. Enabling differences is what I thrive, and I think Mercy thrives on in general. But I think the lowest skill denominator is the blue beam on a DPS, which is why it's kind of like you've always heard that conversation of swap to this character. Oh, well, I'm not good at it. But then that person, if they're telling you to swap to Mercy, they'll be like, oh, well, it's Mercy, right? It's that view of like, oh, and the saddest part is they're not wrong in regards to if they're telling you to swap to damage with somebody. They're not wrong. Anybody can just damage with somebody. And that is the low skill floor. And the way I like to put it is that like you get 80% of Mercy for 20% of the effort, but you got to put in 80% of the effort to get that last 20%. Is how I like to put it when it comes to like effort and skill and learning and decide and decision making, right? And so with that being said, if Mercy has beams, I don't think she'll ever lose the potential for being a pocket playstyle. It's just a matter of where she gets the most value from as a character. And so as long as she gets
Oh, we lost Evie.
more meta DPS. Oh
Back.
no, how long
You're
have
back,
I
you're
been
back, you're
talking?
back, you're back. No, you're back.
Okay.
Just the last sentence.
So like as long as a DPS is powerful enough that pocketing them is the meta, then pocketing will always exist as long as Mercy has her beams. And so it's almost dependent on how much crazy value do you get. Like say when Sojourn in the alpha, pocketing a Sojourn was crazy, right? And now I think it's evening out overall. And I think that's like Mercy is a character that mirrors the value in her team a lot. So the value in her team is like dependent on so many aspects. And so it's less about we're focusing so much on the conversation on Mercy, but I think a lot of it has to do with circumstance. Like the beauty of Mercy is dealing with all the unique circumstances that you're put in and adapting to each of them. And I think that's why I think that I personally hate the pocket style, but that's also because I think there's a beauty in pocketing somebody for a few seconds and pocketing somebody else for a few seconds. But it depends on like how you view pocket. That's just doing your job then at that point, right? That's not really pocketing. And so like that's why I struggle with the term pocketing as a whole in general. And what you can see how it's like there's a lot of different views relating to this that have to get out in order for my opinion on pocketing to fully be explored. But I think you get what I'm getting at overall.
Hey guys, SVB here. Just gonna quickly interrupt this episode of the Group Up podcast to say that if you're enjoying this content, then please do consider signing up for my Patreon to support me directly. It's really amazing because it allows me to keep making content like this carefree, regardless of how many views Overwatch does or doesn't get. I know no one likes sellout ads, but chances are if you've listened till this far in, then you're at least somewhat enjoying the content. So please do consider at least leaving a like, subscribe, and a comment underneath the video on YouTube. It really does help. But that's it for me. Now back to the discussion. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a place of real fascination, and if you guys wouldn't mind, I'd love to just kind of delve into it because I'm sure we'll definitely get back to talking more about like, okay, what tangible changes could we make, and where are we going with 5v5, blah blah blah, and the Superjump as well we haven't mentioned. But this is also, I think, a place of real interest because already a couple interesting points you made. At one hand you were talking EeveeA about like often with Mercy, it's about like pocketing another character who's also badly designed, and the two of them together or something. And then there's also this potential of when a hero is actually kind of busted, then the Mercy pocket on them feels really busted, but that's actually due to the hero, the first hero. And now a third idea as well, which I kind of wanted to bring up in Somnus. I will definitely let you chime in once I finish this up. Which is that what's interesting is that pretty much all four of you have kind of said, yeah, that pocket playstyle, like I wouldn't do it. I don't think it's good. Like none of you seem to kind of say that it was objectively a good way of playing Mercy. Seems kind of suboptimal, especially if you're going to play on your own and you're going to try and climb. So in some ways, is it kind of this red herring, which, almost like this false evidence that gets bandied about to say, Mercy's easy, you can climb so easy with Mercy because look, you can hold right click on one DPS. But of course, that's a very niche and exclusive playstyle only available to those who are actually pocketing someone who is already a very good DPS. And for the average Joe working Mercy, it's just, it's not a lifestyle available to them. So Somnus, go ahead.
That's what I wanted to say. I think, like, I saw people in chat mention Moth. Overwatch League and ladder is not comparable. Competitive play, as in contenders, Overwatch League, even like tier 3, is not comparable to average ladder. Like, if I was playing on a team with an Overwatch League DPS who's on Echo, I'm holding right click on him as much as I can because I know he is good. If I'm playing ladder and I get an Echo and it's Jimmy Butterfingers that I don't know, I am not committing as much on this person. I'm not risking my life like just playing Bonnie and Clyde with this guy because I'm not sure. Like, I feel like it is so much easier in a competitive environment where things are like communication is clear and where you can trust your teammates to actually do their jobs, to like play any character like more efficiently. But especially this like blue beam style of Mercy can be played way more efficiently in that kind of environment, in my opinion. Like, you're more on your own in the ladder environment. And I like Evie's dinner style, like how she said that, like dinner style thingy. Like, normally on ladder, like I will pocket the DPS, but like, if I see my Ana struggling, I'll switch to my Ana and I'll heal my Ana until she's won the fight, so she survives. And I'll go back to my DPS, pocket the DPS until I see, oh my god, my Reinhardt is in danger. I'll go help him. The extra healing beam from me might help him to get out of the unscathed. Like, only tunnel visioning on one target is the kind of pocket style that most people despise and that I personally despise as well, because like it's just like I don't know, like I don't know, maybe I'm the force that is giving, like I want to like I want to win these team fights. I don't want to I want to help my Ana, I want to help my Reinhardt. I don't just want to hold right click on, I don't know. Like, does that make sense? It doesn't.
Yeah.
I would give an example of some of my, and you three might agree, some of my favorite matches in early Overwatch were defending 2 CP and I had 5 DPS on the team. Like, balancing between 5 DPS players is probably one of the most potent examples of balancing between each of their needs. And getting a lot of value from res, etc. And it's like, oh, we got one healer and no tanks. All right, we're gonna lose. It's like, no, I'm like, no. Everybody, all of you do your own thing. We're winning this super fucking easy, and we do. And like that's the kind of play style where, I didn't stick on one of the 5 DPS. Of course not, right?
Yeah.
Like when I'm looking at the enemy team more than my team to be like, okay, my soldier has view on the Zarya. I'm gonna damage boost my soldier, and then I see, oh, my Hanzo has a view on the Reinhardt. I'm gonna go and damage boost my Hanzo to deal with the Reinhardt. And it's paying attention to who's getting what value on what character, and then enabling that value. It's not about trying to just always get more value out of a character. They might be just fucking sucking their thumb. I don't know. You just always got to pay attention to who's getting what value against what character. It's like saying, like there's 3 people shooting a Diva defense matrix, and one of them is Zarya. Of course, you're gonna fucking swap and damage boost the Zarya. That's just like a very direct example of swapping to who's getting the current value at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Zarya is the one that's actually going through the matrix. No problem.
I wanted to add something else. Another thing like that I really like to do is like help targets, especially on defense, especially when I'm defending on 2 CP or like other points, or like when the team fight is about to start, help targets get their ults. Like you don't have to only damage boost your soldier or like your other DPS. Like holding the right click on your Zen volley so your Zenyatta can get Transcendence when he's at 78% or something is absolute big value. Holding right click on your Zarya who's beaming them down to like get grab is huge value. Damage boosting your Rhine Fire Strike. Like you don't have to just like the pocket playstyle, like in that sense, is like you pocket a character to like, to their needs that they can get their ultimate, which can help you in the next team fight.
Which was a big buff to Mercy is when they added ult percentages to the tab menu.
Interject really quickly.
Go ahead, please, Skiesti.
Yeah.
Like I said, don't be afraid to interrupt. Don't be afraid to interrupt.
I was just letting them finish first, but there's actually something that I want to add on to that. Like obviously there are different ways of pocketing, like different forms, different things to do, right? And I think something though to acknowledge is understanding where your win condition is. Like what is the thing that is going to cause you to win the specific fight that you're in or that's coming up. I feel like for myself, there was a long time there and still sometimes where I'm trying to do everything, right? I'm trying to pocket my DPS. I'm trying to peel for my second support. I'm trying to help my second support sometimes with like when our tanks are getting really critical. But I think sometimes you have to kind of stop and say, okay, I'm trying to do everything, but is that my job? Where is my value going to, like going into this next fight, where is my value going to come from? What's my win condition? Who do I need to be playing with? Is it more important for me to be pocketing my DPS who is, either going on the flank or taking high ground or whatever? And if you're doing that, chances are that you're not going to be able to get back to your second support or your tanks or something like that. So I think, in that case, if your Anna's in danger, do you think, oh, do I go back and like help her even though it would take me some time? Or do I just commit and just let her die as long as we win the fight? Which I think is something to consider too. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's actually just listening to you guys talk. I just kind of had a random riff, and I don't know how valid or not this is, but Evie, you mentioned, well, back in the day, I enjoyed 5 DPS. It was kind of gave me something fun and dynamic. In a way, we've seen kind of Mercy's options get limited twice, right? From no roll lock, where you could have had 5 DPS. Not that I don't think people are necessarily saying we need 5 DPS for Mercy to be best, but certainly it allowed potential options for they could run this comp, that comp. I can pick targets a bit more freely, to 2-2-2, where it's like, okay, well, now it's 2 quote-unquote DPS who are supposed to be the people I pocket, to now 1-2-2, where there's even, less potential options, especially when you're a hero who, I think will agree, is that a hero whose output at the end of the day is limited to their team. Like you can't necessarily generate more output than what your team will. You can only amplify it. You can't necessarily generate it, right? So when your output is predicated on that, when you now have one less player, so the day that your 2 DPS are garbage, you now have that less option of a tank to go to as well. Is that a potential nerf to Mercy in some way?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the example I would give actually in another moment that was a blip in Overwatch's history is 132. That experimental. I think if 132 became a thing, I think Mercy would have been so fucking good. I think that like the 132 was so satisfying to play, where the tanks were stronger, you had 3 DPS, and things. I've always felt like. Have you ever felt like SVB like as playing Mercy, where you're just like, neither of my DPS are doing anything. Not that lack of skill, but that they're not in the right position. They're not in the right position. They're not shooting at something. They're like our tanks are off to the left, actually in the action, right? With 3 DPS, it just always felt like I always had at least one of them to help. All right, always one of them to enable. And I think that then, with that keeping in mind, now that we're in 122, absolutely, I think that the limited targets to fly to, the limited targets to boost. I think this comes back to my favorite meta of all time was triple tank. I loved Zarya, Rhine, Hog, Soldier, on a Mercy, where if you think about the targets on the team, all 5 of them benefited from swapping between, where you saw Roadhog get a hook, damage boosted. You see the Reinhardt swinging on Reinhardt, damage boosted. You see the Zarya breaking shield, damage boosted. You see your Ana back then could 2-shot with damage boost. So you damage boost your Ana if you see your Ana taking shots at an enemy support, right? So all 5 of those characters were good damage boost targets, and that's where I thrived. And granted, also back then, if Ana naded a tank, I could get I could get a mass res in 15 seconds. And so my team was never down a player because I would tempo res, right? And tempo resing is a lost terminology, considering now with 2.0, every res is a tempo res, right? Where you're keeping up the tempo of your team and you're keeping things flowing in a consistent tempo. Whereas instead, many Mercy players back then would view it as a pause in the track and then resume. It's like, no, keeping up the tempo is really good and healthy for your team, right? And I think that's like an example of how like there's one of the most fascinating things about Mercy is truly the depth that it just goes not talked about, and the amount of
100%.
not just depth but as well as different play styles, because you can see all of us have different views.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've already seen evidence of that. I was just going to say, we've already seen evidence of that with all the way you guys all talk about your own kind of nuances to it. And you each bring like a really nice thing that, I'm sure I certainly never think about when I'm playing Mercy, or many people in chat or listening who will not think about, oh yeah, I could damage boost XYZ at this time to do this and that, the other. So it does prove that theory. But I kind of want to let Somnus or Niandra chime in if they want to, about just the idea of there being, one less person, and has kind of the lack of flexibility of comps disproportionately hurt Mercy over the years, especially now moving to 5v5. Niandra, I'll take it to you.
I mean, the thing is, a lot of Mercy mains will just will force Mercy every game, regardless of what the team comp is. So, I don't know. I do want to say though, I did think that EeveeA's dinner dash thing from earlier, I thought that was really, really great, and I do especially love that, and I think that is that's really good.
Yeah, we need to make that a thing, the dinner dash Mercy instead of the pocket Mercy, the antithesis to the pocket Mercy. Somnus, what about you?
So to me, wait, can you just ask the question again?
Sure. I mean, so, Evie was talking about how, originally she really enjoyed like 5 DPS, and that, that potential when there wasn't role lock for there to be multiple DPS and multiple different types of comps where, your ideology in Mercy could be a lot more flexible. It has that kind of limited over the years now that we're 2-2 and then 1-2-2.
You know what was my favorite comp, SVB?
Go ahead.
4 DPS ball Mercy was my favorite comp.
It was really good, huh?
That was my favorite.
Loved that one.
So much movement. Everyone on the run. It was my favorite. I felt like I was, I don't know, like I think I saw a comment like years ago, and I was like, hey man, that really like that's perfect. Like someone said they felt like a bumblebee on crack just flying between these people, like trying to keep them alive.
Yep.
And I was like, yes, and it was fun because like my brain was like constantly stimulated by like everything happening. Like I could fly around, like hold right click there, hold right click here, heal this person, heal that person. Like it was more dynamic. I think that's why I like 5v5 a lot, because like I felt like it's so much faster than the gameplay that is currently on Overwatch 1, right? That's why I really enjoy it, because in one Mercy, 4 DPS and a ball meant you were on your own, just like it kind of feels like now in 5v5. You know, like you need to be more self-sustainable. You need to know what the fuck you're doing. You need to know how your movement works, like escape your enemy. You need to know how to get verticality at like certain points, and like that was the great thing about Mercy, 4 DPS, and ball. It was a lot of fun. And
So you don't feel at all like you're more restricted in 5v5. If anything, you prefer it.
I mean, I prefer it to Overwatch 1 because I as I said, like I play a super aggressive playstyle, and like the 5v5 format like allows me to play super aggressively. So to me personally, it's just way more fun because I can work more. I guess I can make it work more. So I prefer it, but it is not, and it will never reach the same feeling as ball, Mercy, and 4 DPS ever. That's something that's just not gonna come back. That's the same thing about Mercy 5-man res. I got top 500 with 5-man res, and it wasn't like I was waiting and hiding and waiting for 5 people to die and went to rest. No. In the middle of the team fight, 2 people are down. I go rest, and we keep it up. We keep the fight up. Like I don't wait for everyone to die and then go in and rest. That was often not the thing. Like that was more of a thing I felt like in lower elo, where people don't look around for you when you're hiding, for example, or like where everything is a little bit more clunky. In high elo, that was not the thing. Like most Mercies, res 1 person, res 2 people, maybe 3, but like you rarely saw them like actually purposely waiting for 5 to die, unless you knew they had grav and you don't have a defensive ult or something.
I mean, coordinating dying to ults was more important than... It's like the joke of everybody die on point, but it was like less about dying on point and more about, hey, let's
just die now.
Let's play in Zarya's
through.
space to try and bait out Grav, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I will say I agree with everything Somnus said 100%. And to clarify, actually, as much as it does limit Mercy's options, I do agree with Somnus that I think Overwatch 2 is better simply because of the one less barrier, where I feel like I almost feel like the fact that it's one tank allows you to, when you do enable your tank, it's more impactful as well. So I think there's a lot of nuance there.
Yeah. I think the last thing I want to add is, hey, like I said this in Skiesti's video that she released today, a lot of hated comps that like usually don't work in Overwatch 1 because you don't have as much sustain, like Mercy Brick and Mercy Lucio works perfectly fine in Overwatch 2. I enjoy Mercy Lucio. I could rip off and break Lucio's legs in Overwatch 1 whenever I see him on my team, but I love him in Overwatch 2. Okay, it's fun to play. Mind you, I would argue like I would not consider myself a Mercy one trick. Like I'll switch to Break. I'll switch to Lucio, like, you know, if I have to. Like I'll even play Ana. But in Overwatch 2, I feel like the concept of one tricking Mercy is a little bit easier because she just works more with many comps, to be honest.
Is that a sentiment you agree with, Skiesti?
Or at least I would say, or at least in, you know, uncoordinated ladder play, it works more.
Which is all we have at the moment, sadly.
So to go off of that, I will say that I think in the first video that I made in regards to like how Mercy was in the alpha, I think I related playing her in that 5v5 environment to kind of how it felt playing like 4 DPS ball Mercy. Like that was probably...
SCV, that was the most ASMR sound ever.
Holy fuck. Oh my god.
Well, stream won't have heard it because I muted my stream audio, but you guys got a little taste of it. Sorry.
Oh my.
I'm eating spring rolls. I'm hungry, okay?
Yeah, so I basically said that 5v5 playing Mercy in that environment was as close to ball Mercy 4 DPS as when it came around. And I do think that 5v5 is the better environment for Mercy. I've been saying this hands down. 5v5 is better than 6v6. She just works better. It's a better environment for her. But even with the hated comps, like every time I get a Lucio, a little part of me dies inside, and I feel it. But in Overwatch 2, it's like you can make it work. It's more adaptable, right? Like it's just you can play it better. It's not ideal still, but it works a lot better in Overwatch 2 than it does in Overwatch 1. Like that environment in so many ways is just better for her, but I do think that she needs a little bit of love still, and which I'm sure we're not talking about this yet, but is why I kind of ended up growing to like the super jump ability and the more movement that it gave her, the like increased mobility, more options, better like potential for survivability. Like it's why I enjoyed that, because it felt like there was at least a little bit more that you could do for yourself in that environment.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, really interesting. And again, I think what I'm getting is really a nuanced issue, as is everything really. But sadly, as a YouTuber, that doesn't do me any good. I need clickbait titles. But, in the one hand, we're saying, well, the lack of one player creates some lack of flexibility potentially for Mercy. But on the other hand, the comps are themselves more flexible, right? Or at least at the moment. Maybe it'll be different. Maybe there'll be the double shield of Overwatch 2 will be hard meta when they release comp. But certainly as we've played so far, it feels like you can run more things viably, and you can one trick more viably if you wanted to, or even a comp that's otherwise considered suboptimal is actually, it's okay. It's not so bad. So that leads me nicely, and even the nuance on the playstyle as well. Like you guys all had such nuanced playstyles. None of you were saying just do this one easy pocket, one simple trick to climb the GM. So that does bring us nicely to the super jump discussion as well, which is that it kind of caused a lot of stir. A lot of people had very, I would say, binary opinions on it, kind of one way or the other. But I gather as well, just from what I've consumed passively of you guys' content, that it actually is a bit more than we maybe thought at first. Like it does a lot more than we thought at first. So who wants to kind of jump in on the super jump? No pun intended. Niandra, you kind of flashed, so I'm taking it to you.
Sure. So initially, I really hated how the new Super Jump felt. Like, my immediate reaction was like, oh, this is quite clunky. But the more I played with it, the more it really started to grow on me. And I think most of the downsides to the new Super Jump are just quality of life stuff that can pretty easily be addressed. And I think it was Ski who mentioned this in one of her videos, is that you can still access the old method of Super Jump. And as long as that old Crouch Guardian Angel is still in the game, then this new one might make, what was it, the words you would say, might increase her skill ceiling, I think is how you described it.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, which I very much agree with.
Yeah, go ahead.
The main downside, I think, is just like the lack of control with heights. I think is like the main thing I would want change with this new super jump. But being able to super jump without reaching your target, because you can do it from any distance, I think is just it's very, very powerful. And also I think it's a step towards making Mercy's movement more independent and revolve around teammates less.
I should quickly, for anyone who maybe isn't aware, who's listening to the podcast, what actually happened, which is that the super jump mechanic has been changed. And for those who completely unaware, obviously in Overwatch 1 and early, at some point in Overwatch, people discover that you could do this weird little thing with Mercy where when you're guard aging towards someone, if you press crouch at a certain, there's a couple inputs you have to put a certain time, and you can shoot up into the sky very, It feels unnatural, but now I think to you guys it's like a second nature. It's kind of like walking to the good Mercy players. Well, in Overwatch 2, just before the beta ended, they added, they made that a lot simpler. Basically, they made the process of it a lot simpler. Where any point during Guardian Angel, you press Control, and boom, up you go. Unlike the original Superjump, this didn't have to be done at a very set distance. It could be done at any point during the Guardian Angel, so that's created some ramifications. And yeah, so I just want to quickly say that a lot of people's initial reaction was that it's making the hero easier, that it's kind of like letting everyone Superjump. This is, I have to confess, this is my initial reaction as well, was like this, where I was like, why are they doing this? Because I saw the blog post the day before they did it, and I was like, uh-oh. They're gonna change Superjump to make it an input, aren't they? They're gonna make it really easy. And I was like, I'm not a good Mercy player. I don't deserve access to Superjump without having learned it. So it felt like I was bypassing the skill gap to meet the hero. But again, the more I've kind of seen you guys talk about it, the more it feels like there's much more to it than that. So on that note, EeveeA, why don't you take us on your thoughts on the whole thing?
Nope, not taking this one.
Okay. Somnus?
Right. So first thing I want to say is, like, I don't think people realize how many times Mercy mains had to change the way they played their character because she got changed so many times. We had 5-man res. We had instant res. Then we had instant res where you had to res first and then pop Valk and then res first. And then we had, now you have to pop Valk first and then res. And then we had, maybe you should not res at all, but like pop Valk and then, go for a harder res. Oh, well, like, Mercy got changed a lot. Mercy definitely got changed a lot. Like, out of all heroes, I would argue probably the most. Like, it got changed a shit ton. Like, that's the first thing. So another change, when I saw another change to like an ability that I've gotten used to, I was like kind of upset. I was like, oh man, like for the past years I've been like doing it this way and now I'm changing it. So I was upset at first. I gotta say, the positives is the independent movement, as Niandra said, and the fact that like you're like less predictable, because good players by now know how Mercy super jumps. A good Genji knows how she shoots up in the air. A good Genji knows how far she goes, for example, and I can catch her with a blade or something, obviously. So this gives her like less predictability in how she moves. What I miss is, I think it did lower the skill floor, like just being able to just use that like a little bit, like that the way, like the fact that you can just super jump like that with a simple cancel lowered the skill floor. It definitely did.
Which I don't think is a bad thing.
Huh?
Which I don't think is a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing, but
it's frustrating to the effort put into the people who.
Yes.
It's
I
basically
think-
the fact that
Yeah.
the thing that we put in to get the most out of Mercy for so many years at the top end just sunk to the bottom and is now accessible to the bottom end. And there's a level of, it feels unfair, but at the same time, it's kind of just like, yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, this is the gripe, though, isn't it? Is that it kind of it bypasses that skill like the learning process again. It's kind of like you spend hours to learn this thing, and that's how you get good at hero. And so now it's like everyone can do the thing that probably would be the definitive, at least from my POV, outside looking in, is probably what I would say is the definitive thing of Mercy's at the highest elos is not just their decision making, but their movement. So adding this thing that kind of just simplifies the movement for the new person hopping on, or the guy who's like, swap to Mercy, it's easy. Does that kind of rankle with any of you?
I mean, so the thing, this is the part where I would actually toot my own horn. I haven't been using Superjump for years. I don't use it, but I think that these three would agree. My movement is still very noticeably way fucking above average without it. In fact, I would still argue I'm still probably in the top easily 50 Mercies or top 20-ish of movement without Superjump. And it's just, there's so much depth to all of our movement without that one ability. But that I completely understand the amount of effort that it went in and the amount of perfection that went in to perfecting a bug, right? And it's a lot of respect is worth putting in to those who perfected it, and that's why it feels all the more disheartening. It's bittersweet. I would rather say it's bittersweet, where it's like, now we have it, part of our kit. It's good. It didn't take away the old version. But now the fundamental basic of a super jump is now accessible to everybody, which I think is for the better. But again, bittersweet for those who put in the effort.
Yeah, I wanted to add a couple more things before I end it there. I was gonna say that the thing that it took away is super jump res, which is like really hard to pull off even for really good mercy players. And like, but it's just so good if you like get off a nice super jump res. Since we don't have height adjustments, we can't do that. Another thing is like it's really finicky, but like sometimes you can make it work. Is backwards guardian angel. I think instead of making super jump more accessible, like giving us tools or like some kind of way to like make a finicky ability or like bug like backwards guardian angel or like super jump res more accessible, and fixing the bugs that come with guardian angel in particular would be better. There's so many bugs. Like there's so many bugs with guardian angel.
I do
Like
have to say, it's kind of one of the most. I feel like a devil's advocate in this case of like, from a developer standpoint, it's almost frustrating of just being like, damn, mercy players just like want all of her bugs fixed, but then they're like, wait, keep those bugs, those bugs were good, keep them please. It's like, it is kind of frustrating that just like we're like picking and choosing of just being like, yes, this is
But
the
is that
bug I
not
wanna
what a
keep.
player experiences? You know, you're like, well, these things are actually beneficial, so you can keep them, but these things are just making our lives worse, so take them away.
Yeah, and see, like I agree with that. In fact, I advocated to Jeff Goodman to keep GA gliding back when it was a bug, and now it's the most pivotal thing to her movement in the entire game is GA gliding, and that's that GA gliding is what Super Jump is built on. And so it's interesting though, but it's just like I there's a part of me that is just like, I want the bugs fixed, but also damn, we are greedy as fuck.
yeah. Also, last
Go ahead,
thing.
Somnus, finish. Yeah.
Last thing, if you like, what I loved is I this is gonna sound stupid, but I get stuck in doorways a lot, and like if you crouch in guardian angel, mercy flies a little bit low on the floor, you know, and it helped me a lot to not get stuck somewhere, and like I can't do that anymore, and it kind of bothers me because I realized like when I played the last 2 days, I got stuck in places I normally wouldn't get stuck because my default guardian angel is the crouch guardian angel. If I need to super jump, I'll press jump. If I don't, I'll fly low on the floor because I don't get stuck on things as easily. That's what I miss as well. But I like the independent movement, as Niandra said. So there's pros and cons, I feel like.
Skiesti, we haven't really heard from you in a bit, so you go ahead.
Yes. Okay, so initially I was kind of with Niandra on the wow, I hate this. Literally, if anyone goes to my stream that day, you can see how much I just outwardly hated it completely, and how like kind of upset that I was that they did that. Because it felt clunky for me. So basically, and this kind of ties into what I'm going to talk about, but my binds are guardian angel onto shift and then crouch onto control. And the way that I engage that is by just like the tip of my pinky is on my shift, and then to super jump, I press down my second pinky joint to be able to press them at the same time. And doing that with the new super jump ability felt really clunky and awful, and it like you had to time it differently, and it just felt really weird and gross. And I was really like, I didn't want to change my keybinds because like all my keybinds are kind of used for something else. And I was like, well, it feels weird to put it on control. It feels weird to put it on alt. And I've got like other stuff on my mouse button, so I don't want to change any of that. But I found out that when I was making my video on Superjump and all of it, I did some exploring on it, and I felt it was like 2 in the morning, and I felt so smart when I figured out that you could still use everything from the new system and everything from the old system. So you can do crouch GAs, you can do super jump reses, you can do V super jumps, you can do the old super jump. And how I ended up doing that was I double binded crouch to both control and to my mouse button. So I would engage the new system on shift and control if I wanted to do immediate super jumps, but to use anything on the old system or to super jump like halfway through an initial guardian angel, then I would use the mouse and kind of treat that as like, these binds are for the new system, these binds are for the old system. So they didn't take away any of her tech or anything like that. They gave her more. So not only do you have the new ability, but you have all of the old text as well. And I think something about that really intrigued me was that, everyone was complaining, oh, Mercy's even less skilled now. Like, I thought she was interesting because, she had this thing where it actually felt like fun to use or whatever. And honestly, I had more fun using the new super jump ability and felt more impactful than I ever did as like, with the bugged super jump. Like, I could pretty much stay in the air and do things like counter mines, or I could, juke out Genji blades even more effectively by, starting super jumps earlier, or, just however I wanted to do that, right? I just felt like there was so many more options presented to me and so many more things that I could do in response to situations that just felt so much more engaging and just more impactful for me. Like, oh, I don't know where my train of thought was going, but
So what I'm
Yeah.
getting from this is that, at least correct me, and can anyone interject if I'm wrong, but it feels like it's kind of both lowered the skill floor and raised the skill ceiling at the same time. But
that's where I
which
was going.
Yeah, and which is,
Sorry.
one thing that I admire about Mercy players in general, and you guys are perfect examples, is that Mercy players are so resourceful, right? Like, you guys have like the tiniest things, and you squeeze all the value out of it that's physically possible, because that's how, you have to do. That's how your hero kind of mandates that you behave.
Same
if
for
you want to.
Doomfist.
Yeah, like Quaked on in chat, Doomfist is the same. Like it's a lot of like squeezing value, and I think that's true of every hero in Overwatch. And you find ways to min max aspects of the character. Primal juggling, another example where no one really thought that was a thing to start with, but you kind of figure out and you min max it. A lot of people's issue, because it seems like most of you guys are kind of at least fine with it. A lot of people feel like, well, could you not have made Mercy a higher skill ceiling hero without also lowering the skill floor? If perhaps the position is, well, is she not maybe already the easiest hero in Overwatch? Do we need to make more of her kit also easy? And I think people, it kind of lends into what we spoke about earlier. People feel like, oh, well, she's such an easy character to get into, and now we made even more of her easier to get into. It feels, for some people, particularly in the metal ranks, like, oh, well, why should I bother learning quote-unquote harder heroes, at least in an accessibility point of view, when this easy click hero now has Crouch Guardian Angel as well?
I mean, I think that implication inherently implies that a lower skill floor is a bad thing. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Or is
Fundamentally,
it more the value floor from the skill floor as well, I guess, is the argument, right? Like the value you can get from a low skill floor hero versus, obviously, I think barring any absolute idiots, no one would say they shouldn't be low skill floor heroes. But I think the argument or frustration from people is, well, yeah, but the value you get at the skill floor is so much higher than the value you get at the skill floor of other heroes.
I just again, I'm so fucking opinionated here.
Well,
So the lingering skeleton in my closet is I still hate Superjump fundamentally. I think that it is a very high value ability on a 2-second cooldown that can be unpredictable. In, I mean, even Metro was complaining about it. Being able to do it at any point is actually, it's good for the Mercy, bad for predictability, which Overwatch is about predictability. And if a Genji dashes, unless he aims at the floor to do a short dash, you know how long his dash is, right? Those kinds of interactions where like things that work unpredictably. While RNG is frustrating, unpredictability from a player makes it frustrating at the player, right? And so I just think in general, I mean, the fact that you can go as high as a Pharah jump jet every 2 seconds, crazy. You can fly it to any person. You can, like, people underestimate how, like, as much as you can with the new super jump, the fact that it's a reliable jump height, cool. But like heroes like Reaper, I guess good luck. I guess gotta swap off Reaper because the Mercy is super jumping, right? Like that kind of shit of just like is this
I
good
feel that pain as a
design?
Reaver player.
Yeah,
One
is this good
DPS.
design? Is this a good thing to have in the game? And like, as much as I want to again be like, this is why it's like people are like, oh, you have like a bunch of Mercy players, they're all biased. It's like, hi,
Doesn't
hello, I fucking
Niandra,
hate it.
You've
Sorry.
been kind of go ahead.
doesn't this already happen though in regards to heroes like Farah and Echo?
In
Not
what
really.
sense?
Well, mainly
You
because
know
they
their
can, like,
max movement speed. With Mercy,
okay.
with Mercy Superjump, she accelerates like 0 to 30 meters per second back to 5 meters per second within 0.8 seconds of time. Her acceleration is fucking crazy. And even that itself is another aspect where I think the acceleration upward needs to be slightly nerfed. Because I think it's just so fucking
It
fast.
was very fast.
Like these are the kind of the nuanced things of like my perspective here, as much as it's fun as Mercy, is constantly this is fucking frustrating to play against. Right?
Skiesti, sorry to interrupt you, V, but Skiesti, I feel like you've been kind of, I see some essays in chat, and I feel like you've got thoughts on this that you want to get out.
Well, okay, it's just because I'm reading chat and it's like, I'm so sorry. It's actually so frustrating to see people being like, no, it's like, why would they have made it easier and now she's like more unfun and like, why would they change this part about her? And it's like, okay, well, I'll read the thing that I said in chat and the thing that I was about to say. But like super jump is a vital part of Mercy at this point for her movement. If you don't know how to super jump, you're at a disadvantage. Like you can still make it work, but it's going to be much harder. So lowering the skill floor to allow other players to be able to use that ability it's not a bad thing. It doesn't take away from her skill. It just makes one part of her easier to use, but that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because whether you realize it or not, and I didn't even realize it initially at first, but for for people on like console, it's a little bit more difficult to super jump, and for people who are as was kind of stated in chat, but like not very good dexterity wise, like that kind of thing helps them out so much, being able to access this part of her kit that they previously physically couldn't. Like, that's not a bad thing. And even though they made super jump easier and more accessible to do, well, I don't even really want to say easier, I'll say more accessible, because I'm not sure easier really applies here. Like, yeah, they might have lowered the skill floor to make it more accessible, but it makes her skill like ceiling much higher because she now has two different systems to master instead of just one. You have to learn how to do the new tech in addition to all of the old tech, and you have to be able to switch between them very well. And the whole like, okay, well, why is she getting this? Well, in 5v5, as I stated earlier, like Mercy felt lacking. I didn't want to specify why exactly that was, but even as like, I don't want to do my own horn or anything, but I'm very good at surviving. My deaths per 10 in most seasons is literally under 4. Like it's between like 3.5 and like high 3s, okay? Like I really don't die that much, like at all. And to switch to Overwatch 2, and for someone like me with such a low death stat and such a reliance on being like in environmental cover and relying on yourself more than your team, it's like yeah, we're talking about comparing stats and I don't want to do that, but like
Dodge the chat, Ski. Dodge the scat for a bit. Don't worry about chat for a bit.
But yeah, like, it's like switching from that to 5v5, and even someone like that having a like somewhat problem, feeling too vulnerable, feeling too exposed, feeling like you can't keep up, feeling like it's you're not getting healed, it's like this combination of things where she has a problem keeping up and finding her to be lacking. And even just this change in super jump, it helps her to adapt better, it helps her survive more, it gives her increased mobility, it gives her more options in how she wants to counter people like dives or like ultimates and all this other stuff, and it gives her that freedom to be more predictable. Like it opens up so many pathways, and for people to just be downplaying that as like, oh, it's just easier now, like it's nothing, it's why would they do that, and it's so boring now. Like no, it's not. You just have to like look a little bit further beyond that.
So here's the duality though, because again, this is in many ways mirroring what we've already talked about earlier, where it's like, well, people think Mercy's easy pocket hero, but they don't appreciate that actually to get good value out of her, you have to do all these other things, and actually the pocket is suboptimal if just kind of blindly done. It feels like in many ways we're having the same conversation here, where you're talking about, well, look at all these windows of possibilities that open up, but I really think that people's gripe isn't really even about what Metro, what EeveeA's referring to is that Metro kind of made a public complaint that he kind of drew this very, budget illustration of like, well, previously, and for those of you who are listening on podcasts, sorry to be you, but visually, there's the Mercy in the center and the soldier on one side. So the Mercy, in previous Superjump, there's only one point at which she can shoot up. So if you're the opposing soldier, you kind of have a rough idea of this is where she's going to start. But obviously with the new Superjump, the lines are all over the place. She can Superjump at any point. So that's one frustration, right? Where Metro's saying, okay, it's opened up for the highest tier. When I'm calculating everything and predicting everything, it's opened up a whole can of worms of problems for me, which is what EeveeA was talking about as well.
Yes.
But I think what the average players, from what I gather, is talking about is like, that's fine. I don't care about that. What I care about is for someone in gold, someone in plat, like it's already pretty easy to sit on Mercy and get more value than a gold plat Ana. Now you've given this essential part of her kit on a button press, and EeveeA talked about, well, it's like a far, rocket at 2-second cooldown. That I think is what rankles with a lot of people, because again, they feel like, and to some extent, look, here's the truth: some hero will always be the easiest to get value at the skill floor, right? There, some hero will always be that. I think people feel like that's Mercy, and you're upping that even further with Mercy, and that's why I feel like people's complaints are at least largely.
I think one thing about Overwatch that's always been a thing is how crazy strong and big verticality is in that game. Like for FPS to have that much verticality is crazy. Like it's insane, and that's why playing into Echo and Pharah, especially with a Mercy pocket, is so hard, right? Because of the verticality. So that's why Superjump is so strong, because like you abuse the verticality and you abuse the fact that it's so much harder to like hit vertical shots than to hit horizontal shots, which like most FPS usually have, That's like one thing about Overwatch that I personally really enjoy, like the fact that there's so much verticality in the maps, and on heroes, and many heroes as well. But this is like what Metro said with the unpredictability. It's a problem because I think I mentioned it before. Like a good Genji will know when and how you can super jump back, like up, right? So instead of blading you and trying to dash you like that, he's gonna dash forward to the target you're trying to super jump off of, and then dash straight up, like up to you, because he knows like the only place you are even able to jump is like at that distance. So it just it makes it very hard. I feel like it makes it very hard.
I feel like you guys want to chime in, so like I said, go on and interrupt. Niandra, I keep seeing the icon flash like you're trying to say something.
I mean, one thing I think is really important to keep in mind is that, like, is the mechanical execution of Superjump really the skillful part, or is it more the timing? Because, like, let's be real, it's not really a secret tech anymore. I think you could easily find players in, like, silver, maybe even bronze, that know how to do it, and they'll probably spam it the entire match, even if positioning behind the team would be safer. And, yeah, I think that's worth keeping in mind.
I want to piggyback on that because I've been thinking about that constant. Like I've been like, one of the most heated opinions I have on this is that it is bad game design to make it to where your highest skill players have to change keybinds in order to play at the highest skill. It is bad game design, flat out. So as much as I respect Ski for changing her keybinds all over the place to make this possible and make both possible, you have to realize, Ski, that's bad design, right?
Oh yeah, I hated doing it.
Yeah,
I hated doing it, but I wanted to be able to access and see like what using the two systems was capable of, which it's capable of some really incredible things, but it's not like I wanted to. But
exactly.
I found a workaround.
Which is why I'm saying I think we need to improve the new one slightly in a few different ways. Slightly nerf the acceleration, maybe add a way for variable height, and then gut the old one. Because I think that right now, in general, if something requires either rebinding of keys or some secret thing that's still not explained, it should not be in the game. That's just flat out, because it's like, you also have to keep in mind the amount of people who, again, as somebody in chat mentioned, and I've talked about this for years, of disabilities. Overwatch is very good for people with disabilities, and that's why when they reworked Symmetra, I was incredibly sad, because Symmetra was somebody that a lot of people who have fine motor control issues or disabilities, the lock-on beam was great for them to get value on a DPS character. When that was removed, suddenly they didn't have anywhere to go. And so while on like a game design decision or like a balance decision, that might have been a good rework, but considering you have the person, like with Symmetra being representation for autism and those on the spectrum, you're then making their representation and gameplay representation now only a vague story representation, and they can no longer play. And so this is the case where Mercy is a character where tons of people with disabilities play because of her simplicity, and that now we're still talking about how it's good that we have both, but it's like, it's also just like, is it though? Is it like, I want to fight for the best version without trying to scrap together the old stuff. Like, so like I think we should get rid of the old super jump. Like, the problem is also I'm just such a nuanced
Agree.
views of like,
No, I agree with you.
I want res removed. I want super jump removed. And then it's like, what does Mercy have? It's like, think of the possibilities. That's the point. It's like, I don't think res is healthy for a first person shooter. I don't, especially on a cooldown. If it was the best version that we could potentially have of it, if it was an earned ability, and then like it doesn't happen immediately, or like then like the fact that damage boost is free damage. Is damage boosting in a game itself a good design? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. Free damage boost is pretty fucking powerful. You know, all these different aspects of like, I am the biggest fucking Mercy nerd that loves Mercy that hates Mercy. There's so much to her kit that's just not good. But that doesn't mean it's not fun. I love Mercy so much. And so like this is why it's so frustrating of just being like, ah.
Well, this is where you're true to your word, because like you said, you both love and hate Mercy, and you kind of said many times like, I got too many opinions on this, because again, it's kind of like someone watching and be like, so you hate damage boost, you hate super jump, you hate res, what part of Mercy do you like? You know, like someone's gonna be like, well, what do you do? But of course, I think that's what's really, again, fascinating about Mercy, is that she's this hero that's gone through so many changes, that there's so many nuances and playstyles that often are misunderstood, and yet she's also so popular. The fact that we have 4, very well known, if I can say so, Mercy one tricks, or initially known as one tricks. Sorry, I don't want to use that disparagingly. I know you guys can play more than Mercy, but that you're Mercy players, you're famous for being Mercy players, and I probably would struggle. I think Violet was in here earlier saying that this is great. I wish we had a great Brig debate, but it's like, well, I can't think of 4 Brig one tricks, right? Like, or Brig players, right? So it's like, it's again part of this very complex space that Mercy has. But yeah, I mean, Somnus, you agreed. Skiesti, do you kind of have anything to feedback off of what EeveeA is saying about, well, this sort of love-hate relationship with a lot of this kit?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, for me, here's the thing. I love Mercy. I wouldn't have over 5,000 hours in the hero if I didn't love her, but she can be so incredibly frustrating to play for a variety of different reasons. And when it comes to her kit, I mean, her mobility is a big part of the reason why I play her, why I love her so much. Personally, I think that res has a place in Overwatch. I don't think it's really as much of a, big thing as it used to be, but I think in 5v5, it just doesn't feel as useful. It feels like even harder to pull off, and that doesn't feel good. Like, it feels much more punishing to the point where it's basically not even usable.
Bring in some history here. That reminds me of so Mercy 1.0, she got a various number of patch fixes that band-aid fixes that I call them, where mass res was just very complicated in various ways, where so she got a various patchwork fixes, and I could see the writing on the wall that they were trying to make these patch fixes before 2.0. I could tell that they were trying their best. Like, remember when you stopped being able to res and spawn? They added immortality to the res. They made it instant. They made it you can GA instantly after res, which is still my most missed thing about Mercy, is being able to GA after res. But the point being is that was a key thing that I talked to Jeff Goodman about, is that they made it to where she was invulnerable during res cast time, was because he noticed it was too much of a suicide ability. You would res and you would die. Then it was cool, you got your 5 teammates up, but you're now down 1, right? And so I think it's now coming full circle to where in Overwatch 2, as Ski is saying, is you have one less person to peel for you. You have one less person to protect you in general. And so resing is now very vulnerable again. And we're at the situation where it's like, we can't really give like Mercy a way to like have invulnerability, because like it's not an ult. You're not trying to get off an ultimate, right? It's a risky ability, right? And so I think it just amplifies further that it's a fucking powerful ability, which is very, very fucking high risk, high reward. But it's feeling like the reward is feeling less and less tangible.
Very interesting point. Niandra, Somnus, either you want to feedback on it?
I don't really have anything to add, but I do think it's very interesting that this is how we're feeling, considering before we got to play Overwatch 2, there was a lot of fear that res would just be fundamentally broken or just super OP, and now we're like, it's okay. I just think that's very interesting.
Well, that's I think true of Overwatch 2 in every way, right? Like, and there's so many things that we thought and that just turned out to be flat out wrong. I mean, earlier we were talking about people actually grouping up a bit more. At least EeveeA was saying that people are grouping up more. I certainly think it's more important in many ways in 5v5 than even Overwatch 1, which is the opposite of what we thought. So it's just great having a game with so many different things happening. But Somnus, how do you feel about sort of everything that's been said, the idea of that kind of like love-hate relationship, and you know, some aspects of her kit being, while you use them, you kind of like, I don't know if I really want this to be a thing.
I mean, as I said, like, I made Mercy a playstyle for myself that I will always enjoy, you know? Like, no matter what changes come and go, like, the playstyle I'm playing is always going to be a playstyle that I'm going to enjoy, and I personally feel like I'm getting a lot of value out of. People are going to disagree, going to be like, oh no, you need to damage boost more, oh no, you need to do this more. I think I'm having fun. I'm still playing at the same elo as like people who maybe have 500 more damage amplified than me and don't have as many limbs, you know? And I'm having fundamentally more fun. So to me, I like it. The only thing, and I agree with this, is res is not giving me any satisfaction at all. It's like kind of, you know? I think either take out res and replace it with a different ability, or make it less risky by making it instant again. But then it might become broken again. So again, there's a lot of testing to do. Like that's what I'm thinking, at least.
Well, on that note, do any of you guys have any sort of ideas like that you're like, I think I would like Mercy to go this way in Overwatch 2, that you haven't expressed yet that you'd like to? Skiesti? I know EeveeA's nodding, so I'll come to EeveeA after.
Yeah, mine will be really quick, because I've never felt comfortable giving balanced suggestions or potential changes that I want to see, because I'm not a game developer. I'm not going to pretend that I have any clue how anything that I would potentially do would work. So I mostly just stay away from that kind of thing.
Fair enough. Niandra, because again, I know EeveeA has some, so Niandra, do you have any?
There was the whole less ult charge from healing, more ult charge from damage boost that I mentioned earlier. The only other thing I can really think of is maybe increase the time it takes for her beam to break when your target becomes invalid. So if you're Mercy and you're beaming someone and they go behind a wall, it takes 1.5 seconds for the beam to break. Maybe increasing that to 1.75, 2 seconds. 3 seconds if you want to be really spicy. I think maybe doing that would be quite interesting, because it would synergize with the roll passive, and it would also give more like prop bounce opportunities, which I think could be very interesting.
I'll give you this, Niandra. I've literally never heard somebody suggest modifying that number.
From
And
the
you
other
know how
side,
much
from the
damn.
other side, where people would say, well, you're just encouraging her to be even more away from the fight, which is again part of what people's frustration is like. Well, she's not even participating.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's Ana where she's getting like immense value from being LOS and it's pivotal on her being LOS. I don't know. I see what you mean, SUV, but I think it's like one of those things where it's like, I mean, as long as Beam is on, that is her doing her job, right?
Mhm.
I don't
I
know.
feel like
it's-
that would be beneficial for her because it helps her keep up more so. Because I saw a few people suggesting that you should give her like, you know, if your beam is on a DPS target, then she should get their movement buff or whatever. Which but I like Niandra's suggestion actually quite a bit, thinking that beam will linger a bit more, so that in those cases where it might be a little bit harder to keep up just because of their passive, like. Might not be
Yeah.
bad for her.
I mean, with Mercy, she's the type of hero where just quality of life changes can make her immensely better.
Mhm.
Like the different
Stay connected.
the different sensitivities depending on beam or pistol, or if we had direct individual keybinds for swap beam, fly to target, or fly to beam. If we had actual keybinds for each of those, it'd be amazing. But it's like it's a case where she's also like one of the most, not only is she one of the most deceitfully so nuanced characters in the game, she also has the most hero specific settings. You know, there's so much to her that like is all over the place, and I think that like I'm of two minds where it's like I think she, like, of course I want the fundamental complete fucking rework of this character, but at the same time I think we can, there's so many small things that are genuinely small that can make her better, feel better, and like just overall get a lot more value. And it's interesting because like again, Niandra's point of the potential 3 seconds beam break, which by the way I thought it was 2, not 1.5, but yeah, it's like I've never heard that suggestion before, and it's really interesting to think about. I think it has a lot of potential.
Well, that's what's fun about you guys, like Mercy Mains. You guys want just more like options in your, you're just like the nuances of your character, right? It'd be like some, like a tank player would be like, I want 50 more armor, and I want thing. You guys are like, can I get another setting that lets me GA like this at this time or GA like this at the other time? Like that's all I want. I just want another setting. So I do really appreciate that about you guys. But yeah, Evie, do you have anything you wanted to mention before we kind of move topic? In terms of things that you'd want in Overwatch 2?
Can beams not disconnect during Valk? That'd be great too.
Oh, that's
that's
what I
another
know
small
you guys
one.
wanted for a long time.
ML7 implemented that and is experimental, and then for some reason they didn't put it through.
It was so
Beyond me.
So he didn't implement it. The reason why is it was functioning differently. The thing with Valk on the E was that it wasn't a transformation ult. It was activating the different nuances of Valk. So the reason why it disconnects is because it's a transformation ult, and that transformation is a cast time. So that's why we currently have it. And it's reminiscent of in the OG days. Something subtle that I did that I initially didn't even realize, but when people pointed it out, I was like, what the fuck? And they fixed this, but back in the OG days of 1.0, if you had toggle beam, activating res didn't stop beam.
Oh yeah.
Used hold, it did deactivate beam. They patched that out, unfortunately, but I did certainly enjoy that benefit for probably over a year. But it's a single example of how like her history is so vast. The amount of changes she's had is so vast. The nuances are so vast, and it's just like there's so much to say. And I will never not have things to say. But I think that just like in general, I think for example, one of my ideas for Valk that I gave 2 years ago is now even more important than ever. I think these three could agree. It's simultaneous. While I'm contradicting myself by saying people are more clumped up, oftentimes they're just far apart. They're clumped up to where GA isn't useful, but split apart enough to where chain beams feels very rarely impactful. I feel, and so like one of my ideas was like I think that instead of making her, oh congrats, you're spectating, everybody has everybody has their beam chained, and the mini game is just picking the best person in the middle of the crowd. Like that's the mini game you're playing in Valk, really. I think it would be much more impactful if, say, we had damage boost go down to 25%, and then in Valk, you have single beam target, but both your beams are doubled in effectiveness. So you have the option to switch between people for a 50% damage boost, and then you have like buffed healing, but it's not that you're buffing. That's not that you're healing everybody, right? It's not just a glorified AOE of your beam. Now it increases your decision making moment to moment, right? And it's like that's an example of like I think that would actually be even better in Overwatch 2 than when I originally thought of it, and that I think that would then balance out her overtime benefit outside of Valk. And I think there's so many things I want to say. One of the biggest issues too that I think people don't talk about is like 2.0 was a fucking flop. It was a fucking menace. It was too powerful, and now we're ended up on a skeleton of what it used to be. So not only have we tried to change our playstyles, but it just feels terrible compared to what it used to be. And that's not our fault. That's just because it was so powerful for so long, right? And like 2.0 set out specifically so that she would do more between ults. And guess what we have now? The only thing we can do between ults is a 30-second cooldown. Congrats. Wow. Like its goal that it set out to do was a failure. And now so many aspects of her kit that were originally less intrusive, like, are now more hindered because of the amount of nerfs that they had to do to the character, right? And so like, these are the kinds of things that are just like, yeah, I'm
Go ahead,
just
Somnus.
wrapping up.
Oh,
Like,
after-
this is, like,
after you.
SPV, I actually have an old Val clip that like every time I look at that, I'm like, this is what we lost. Like it's insane. Like how much we've lost, like how crazy strong and impactful Valk used to be. Like if like the only thing that was bothersome was that you could like kind of.
Sorry, I just want to quickly let Evie finish because Evie's saying that she was going to finish up, and then we'll have this discussion.
Yeah,
No, it's okay.
I just got reminded. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Keep that on the pin on it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just finishing up as well, just being like, yeah, it shows like the breadth of possibilities for her, as well as simultaneously what we have is still a broken version of a past attempt at a rework. So it's less about she's not viable now because, like, I mean, obviously it's an opinion that it's a broken version of a past rework, but what we have now is a skeleton of a past attempt to rework her because of her issues, right? And so we're just back in the same place of, well, now we don't have much between ults, and we feel like Valk is a spectator ult, and yeah, which is why I champion pivotal changes.
Well, yeah, it's actually this two interesting point. I want to left some of this. I was going to say is what's interesting is that when you guys were reminiscing about your favorite metas, none of you mentioned moth meta, but that's probably the one that people are most terrified. Are most terrified of. But yeah, so let Somnus explain. I pulled it up on stream, Somnus. So go ahead and describe why you brought this clip up.
So, like, first of all, like the value that res gets, the value that a long Valk gets, the value that an instant res gets, like it's just crazy how much like you could do in 20 seconds. Or like it was like just insane. Like this fight was won because we double rest. We did graph, but I feel like even without the graph, it would have been won. Like Moth meta was incredibly powerful, and I think it was because of because you could chain res in a way where you could, I think, res 3 or 4 times.
4 times in 21 seconds.
Yeah. So that was the insane thing about it. And I think if they had just tweaked around that instead of completely butchering it and making it disgusting to play now, it would have been great. It would have been great.
We don't even have res again after Valk, after activating Valk.
Yeah, and again, this is just what's so fascinating about Mercy. There's so many branches here, and one question I want to ask for. There's another topic that you guys know I want to cover as well, and I've not taken too much of any of your times, but this is so fascinating. Again, so much to talk about. I honestly feel like even as someone who's not a Mercy player, I still find so much fascination in this discussion. But like, what do you guys think is essential to Mercy? Because you've all picked at different parts of her kit. Like, so what is the one thing that you would say is kind of defining of Mercy?
Movement.
Skiesti?
Well,
yeah, my answer is also movement, but that goes along with, like, obviously when you think movement, what else goes along with that on the back end is like your survivability and your positioning. But yeah, the base is movement.
So like Guardian Angel or you know, obviously Evie, you say you
Yeah.
don't really use Superjump, but like Guardian Angel and Superjump presumably.
Yeah, knowing
Guardian
how
Angel.
to use her different techs interchangeably and knowing like when's the best time to do it. So yeah, it's pretty much all about her movement.
Well, that's very
SVB.
interesting. Yes.
Have you ever played like a Mercy, you know, like a Mercy Guardian Angel Superjump like parkour?
Hardcore.
Isn't it interesting how many different kinds of ways there are to like make use of her movement? Like that's the great thing about it. Have you ever? Because like that's the
No,
great
I
thing.
don't think I have. I mean, I actually suck at I can't super jump in Overwatch 1, so
Yeah,
this
but
is the
like they
thing.
have
Like
like
I just
they have
don't.
like
Go
but they
ahead.
have like little explanation. They were like text that I didn't even know you
I've
could
played.
do,
I
you
see.
know?
This is the thing. This is what's funny because a lot of you guys are like, it's so easy. I've played like Niandra's trainer and stuff for Superjump, and I still fuck it up regularly. This is why I'm like, I shy away from playing Mercy because I'm like, I'm just gonna die, bro. I'm just gonna Guardian
could
Angel and
probably,
fuck
like,
it up.
We could do like a session. Like I feel I have a video on
Well,
YouTube.
I
actually,
appreciate it, but now that they've made it nice in one button press in Overwatch 2, I don't really need to worry. I can super jump whenever I want.
It was so fun though.
Yeah, I mean, it's just again, it is so. It's what I admire the most about Mercy players is the sort of the depth that comes with just the smallest aspect. And again, the super jump is initially why I was upset, where I was like, why are you taking away this process of like learning all these little prop jump, bounce, wall jump, super bunny hop, you know, like all these crazy things that you guys do. So that was my take. But you know, unless there's anything else anyone wants to add, I do want to take it to like a more community aspect of Mercy because we kind of.
Oh my god! I wanted to ask you if you wanted me to like say something controversial here. You know,
I mean,
stir it up a
you
bit.
say whatever you feel like, Somnus.
Oh, you want
so
me to
at that
stir
point,
it up?
say
You know-
whatever you
you
feel
know-
like. So
you
can
know
I
what? When
set
you-
the scene up? But
Yes,
unless you want to,
yes.
Okay.
Set it up.
So, you know, I think this is a sort of elephant in the room, and I'm sure Mercy players will concur with this. But there was a tweet from Tesla recently saying that basically they think that Mercy receives disproportionate hate because people think, you know, the perception is that the player behind the screen is either a woman or LGBTQ+, right? And I've said this so much in a video as well at length before, and I do think that Mercy probably gets a disproportionate amount of hate for who is perceived to be playing the hero. And it's very entangled with legitimate criticisms of the hero. And of course, you guys yourself, you've all said like you have love-hate relationships with the hero, and there's aspects you dislike and, you know, do like. But it's definitely, I think, a complicated but a valid area to bring up. And I wanted to obviously get your guys' opinion as players who experience this. So Somnus, you go ahead. I know Skiesti, you've had recent thoughts on this as well.
Really quickly, before Somnus goes, I just want to say on that note of like Tesla's specific tweet, I'm just saying, for example, if you know a female Mercy player had written that same exact tweet, do you know the increased amount of hate and pushback they would have gotten on that compared to whatever was in Tesla's comments? Like, incredible. It would have been so different. The difference between that tweet and the tweet that Tesla made, night and day, even though they were the same tweet, it would have had completely different response if it was
that's
a
just
female
misogyny in
Mercy main that
general,
tweeted
too.
it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I have to
Or,
say
I
as well,
mean-
like the video that I made, like I was like, you know, some people in the comments are like, thank you for making this, but I feel shit when I read that, because I know that had it been a female player making the video I made, there would have been a lot more negative comments. Not that people didn't send me death threats and stuff, that's standard, or, you know, YouTube stuff, but it's I mean, it's just case in point of the sort of, you know, conditioned misogyny, as we might call it. But anyways, I want to let Somnus speak, so Somnus, go ahead.
Yes. So let me start off like this. The reason why I play Mercy is very simple. I saw her, she speaks German and she's pretty. You know, she spoke to me. She has wings, she's blonde, she's beautiful, she's cute. Like, I want to play her. It's the same reason why I love playing female enchanters in League of Legends. They're pretty, they have nice skins, you know, like it speaks to me. It's a you might call it feminine. Yes, it's a very feminine aspect, I guess, but I love it. Okay, I love that. And I think this is where the problems start, because in League of Legends, there's the same problem as I mentioned before with Yuumi or like other enchanters like Soraka, or it's always assumed that a woman or like a feminine representing person is sitting behind the screen playing this character because that character is so girly in quotation marks, it's such a feminine character. And I think another thing that is the same issue with Yuumi is like Mercy is a very sexualized character. And I don't just mean in terms of Overwatch porn or something. I mean just in the way she is. Like, let me explain it to you. Don't look at me like that, Evie. I know one of your usernames, okay? I'm not going to mention it.
Whoa,
but
whoa. I'm holding back saying a lot right now. Hold on. I'm just thinking. I am not.
No. I feel like a lot of people, like especially like men, like kind of like over like sexualize like the person playing Mercy, and sometimes people want like I mean I'm not gonna speak for other people, like I personally don't want to be like like sexualized because I'm playing Mercy, like, oh mommy hold me on a leash, like it's funny, but like if like people sometimes go too far, like it goes too far, and like I don't want to be sexualized for playing this character. It's the same with Yuumi, because like, oh baby, you can only pocket me, okay, because you're sitting on me with Yuumi. Like that's one of the reasons why I guess the pocket style is both hated and loved, and I feel like especially by men, because they want a Mercy pocket for like various reasons, but at the same time they hate Mercy pockets, and they behave in like a really sexist way towards Mercy pockets. Like look at that slut holding right click on that guy, like shit like that. Like this is not like a one-time thing. Like if it's a man on Mercy pocketing his friend, fuck it, whatever. If it's a woman on Mercy pocketing her friend, nah. that doesn't work to them. Like it's a crazy concept.
I want Niandra to talk, and then I have a fucking verbal essay.
My thing was I'm pretty open about being non-binary, right? But I am assigned female at birth. So some people hear my voice and they'll be like, "Oh, why are all Mercy players women?" And it's kind of ugh. But I don't like to make a fuss about it. I did like a sponsored Mercy video guide for Blizzard like 2 years back, and like the comment section, I think like Instagram was especially bad, and it was like a mess of like people just arguing about my pronouns. Like if I ever do anything notable, my pronouns will come up, and then it was like obviously all the stuff about Mercy being like easy and stuff, and it is a lot TM. But yeah, that's my perspective.
And Ski, do you have anything else to add before we let Evie just go off?
I'll let Evie go off first, and then I'll probably go off after her.
Okay.
All right. I mean, we can start off by your sample size. Congratulations. You have 4 women who are all queer. One's pan, one's bi, one's non. Well, wow, I'm fucking hate myself. I'm so. Okay.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. You get the point though, and I'm trans and a lesbian, and so we're stereotyped to hell and back. And we gotta go back. We gotta go back in time here. There's so many different. Thank you, Shadow. There's so many different aspects where the things to track backwards is the fact that misogyny in general has impacted the view of men go to war, women stay at home, right? So then we have the situation where video games, competitiveness, shooters, it's a boys thing. So then we have women growing up being their brothers are playing the shooter game, and then them asking, "Oh, can I play?" It's like, no, this is for boys. And so you have these generations of women who were not offered the same access to these video games. And then we have generations of men who have, for a decade plus, played FPS games. The amount of CS:GO players that came over to Overwatch initially, right? Or TF2, etc., or Call of Duty. And we have the situation where Overwatch as a game with representation and a vast cast of characters draws the eyes of everybody, right? Yes, Shadow. So you have the situation where women are playing Apex, first Overwatch, then Apex and Valorant for the first time as their first shooters. But Overwatch, especially when you have this culture where you have a game where, well, the one that doesn't, you haven't played a shooter before and you want to enable your boyfriend, well, then play Mercy. And it's women are then like pigeonholed into the Mercy character because they don't have pre-existing skill because of misogyny in the first place. And so it's a gigantic social global thing because of just intrinsic societal views. Thank you, Shadow.
I think I don't
Just in
speak cat. I
general.
think that's a yas in cat form.
And so, with that being said, then there's other aspects where Mercy's very identifiable, like Somnus was saying. Like Mercy's attractive. You want to play characters you identify with. Then, like I view it like I love how Mercy's like a caretaker character.
Yes.
You caretake, you enable people. Your job is to do your best to enable those around you. And I love that. And I think that also speaks to then why there's so many gay men who play Mercy, because for those who don't know, each additional child a mother has, they're 33% more likely to be gay. And the evolutionary explanation behind gay people is that in a community, gay people would be the caretakers. So they would help everybody. They would help caretake all the children. And so I would say that there's a level of averaged out higher maternal instincts in queer people, I would say. And I think that translates anecdotally across the board to where Mercy is a very character that not only do people identify with, it's easier for the demographic to get into, and as well as it's identifiable. And so I think that there's so many different aspects to this and why people play Mercy. But then as well, you get that stereotype of lacking skill. They're on Mercy because they lack the skill to play other things. And so you get not only the misogyny of assumed the majority of the player base of Mercies are women, then you have also the assumed if they're not a woman, they're gay. I mean, hell, I had a gay community of men in my community before I came out as trans that were all trying to get in my fucking pants, and they were all like all this kind of shit. And so it's like, yeah, I know the stereotype because that was my community, right? And so with that being said, it's just so deeply rooted in things beyond the game, right? And so while Mercy herself is a character that is enjoyable in the low skill floor and whatnot, I think it speaks volumes that this is how she's being treated over time. And so, I think that, God, there's so much. It's just very telling that this is where we are. But I'd say that Overwatch was the stepping stone game, that then Apex came afterwards. And I'd say I've never seen so many women play an FPS game in general. And then and getting into honing their FPS skills. And then Valorant came out. And those same women who honed their FPS skills in Apex are now, I would say, the most progressive game we have as far as women playing an FPS game is Valorant now. There's so many professional women in Valorant. It's just how it is, right? And I think that to an extent, we loop back though to the perception of lacking skill then pressures people to continue playing Mercy. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're either on Mercy and you're a shitty player, or you play something else other than Mercy and then they're like, go back to Mercy, right? And so there's so many women who play DPS nowadays that if you ask them, they'll tell you they started on Mercy. A huge amount of them started on Mercy, and that it takes so much mental fortitude to break out of that mold, but you have to then regardless receive a barrage of hate and harassment for doing so, right? And so it is a never-ending vicious cycle that we're being put in of just societal circumstances, right? And it's interesting how Mercy has become a hot pot of all of these different things, where just all this is thrown in as factors. And we can just say it's like, okay, like why does Mercy players get so much hate? That's a lot. It's a lot to talk about, right? It's such a simple thing of why do Mercy players get hate, and then it's like I've thought about this for a very long time. There's so much to this, and so it's even funnier because like when I came out as trans as a woman, and then people are like, see, now you're properly playing into this stereotype, and it's like I mean, yeah, I guess, but that's like it's more that like I mean, it's funny too because like I played COD before Overwatch. People are like, "Oh, did you play TF2 Medic?" It's like I've never touched TF2 in my life. Like I played COD. I was the person doing 200 kills and 4 deaths. I love that shit. But at the same time, Mercy's just so great. And completely unrelated related to this specifically, but the previous of like what is Mercy? It's like beam, movement, and the subtle sleeping like bear is her passive health regen. And that was like something that I loved because I came from Call of Duty, and I was like, wow, the passive health regen is natural to me and mentally. And it's just so funny to see how it all intertwines for me personally, but then elaborates to a broader perspective of like, yeah, identified with Mercy, especially as somebody who, before I came out, and in the friend group, I was the mom of the group, right? And so it was even easier for me to play into that, right? And so it just seeing all of this play together is like, yeah, it is the way it is. But it's good to see that in future games now with Apex and Valorant especially, it's getting better, right? We are rapidly accelerating improving the perception of women in gaming, and especially in FPS games. And it's just that it's sad to see that the Overwatch community though is lagging behind that because of effectively Mercy will always be the character that if you lack first person shooter experience, you go to that character if you want to play Overwatch, right? Which is both amazing and a bad thing, right? Because bad from player perception, but also good that Overwatch is so accessible, which is why I was so sad when when Symmetra lost the lock on, because that was one less character that was accessible, right?
Hmm.
So it's like all that wrapping together is like Mercy's a beloved character, but also a hated character, but also as with men in general, they sexualize what they hate. Trans porn is one of the most popular porn demographics, and racial porn, and then now, ironically enough, people just love Mercy so much, and Mercy's like the most popular Overwatch porn character, etc. And it's like it's still just reminisce of we get sexualized against our will in matches, no matter
Yep.
what.
Yeah. Can I
The hmm?
can I just say that I love the way you're speaking? Like, I was really scared of like being on this podcast because I'm the only one who doesn't speak English as my first language, and like just listening to you guys speaking in like a really eloquent way, it kind of comforts me as well. And I also don't do educational content and stuff, so I just wanted to thank you guys for like making me feel comfortable here. So like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Aw.
It's great to hear.
yeah.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
what people say when they say representation matters, right? I think a lot of people who don't understand that, or people who perhaps have always had representation, get confused when people say that, because they're like, well, why do you need to see yourself in this character? Like, why does that matter? Without, I think, appreciating how much that goes into everyone's choices, whether conscious or subconscious. Again, I want to let Somnus talk, not myself. So it's Somnus, because you said you gravitated towards Mercy because she's looks great, and that's
Yeah.
a totally valid reason.
Yeah, like I mean, it's the same with me in League of Legends characters. Like, I think it's a valid point as well. Like, I love, like, I love women, and I love pretty women, and I love women with wings. And I was like, wow, I love movement. Like, so I was like, wow, Mercy, like, perfect for me. So like, I think that's a simple reason to play Mercy. And EeveeA spoke about a lot of things that were in my head, but I just couldn't put into words properly. But the thing that bothers me the most is like we get pushed into playing Mercy, but at the same time, like we get told to swap off Mercy, and then if we go something else, we get flamed for being, oh my god, like you should be on Mercy, And like this whole thing is not just a Mercy problem; it's like just a misogyny problem in Overwatch in general. Like you guys know Deku, or like Barcode, for example, like one of the few like women that openly play DPS, and like they're facing issues. Like Deku especially, like there's people who are like, she's a woman on DPS, like she can't be that good, she's boosted, blah blah blah, shit like that. And I love playing with them. I love playing with them because like they face so much shit for like just doing what they like, and like from being like from men trying to force them into a box that they don't feel like they want to be in, and that's completely fine. Like it's really hard for them as well, like in general. And um same for women on tank. Like it's the same concept. Like it's like, oh, I like, you can't play tank, like you should be on support, or like shit like that. It's complete. It always happens. Also, like this
When you
is just
speak in comms and be like, "Oh, there's
yes,
a woman, that's why we're losing."
yeah. Like
And usually the time you're speaking up in comms is to
yep,
try and pull it around.
yep. Also, another thing that I realized, because like I wasn't in like communities before, so like in the Overwatch community, one thing that I realized and that I was like kind of how do you say it, like that I kind of did myself and feel that I was guilty of, um men and their selective misogyny, like they're sexist towards you because you're a Mercy, but like their friend or their girlfriend who's on Mercy, that's okay. Like, they're great because like they're friends, like they have an
Yeah,
emotional
they're the ones sucking
connection.
their dick.
Yeah, like it's like no, for real. Like it's so crazy how like if
You're
they
the good
don't
one.
yeah, if they don't emotionally or sexually feel attracted to you, how they like automatically treat you shittier, Like women's rights, but only women's rights if I feel sexually or emotionally attracted to you in some way, or like if I have a connection to you, And it's crazy because I feel like it's also like a breeding ground for internal misogyny, you know? Like, because they
Oh,
make this woman like feel so different and separated from other women that she is starting to like get into this like really toxic internalized misogyny like issue, which
hey,
I've
girls.
never seen before because I wasn't part of a community, but it's rampant in Overwatch, like fucking rampant. Like Mercy means attacking other Mercy means internal misogyny, very often driven by that.
Yep. Yep.
I believe the term for this is the Madonna whore complex, where a woman is sort of this Madonna figure, if she's chaste and pure, but the minute she kind of openly expresses her sexuality, she's a whore. And the Madonna is for you, the whore is like, what isn't yours, basically.
Yep.
Skiesti, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, so kind of I'll talk a little bit about my own experience. So, before Overwatch came out, I played League of Legends mainly. My only experience really with any kind of shooter, and I don't think you'd even consider this, but it was Fistful of Frags, if any of you know that game. I played that sometimes. It's some game on Steam. And like that was pretty much my only kind of exposure to like FPS games in a sense. And again, I'm not even sure you could call that an FPS, but I got into Overwatch in the beta because of mutual friends of mine that were really excited about the game and really wanted to play it, right? There were 6 of us, and I was the only girl in that group, and I ended up being on support most of the time. And because there were limited support heroes, Mercy was I think I played Mercy and I played Lucio, and if you actually look at my season 1, I think Lucio is more played than Mercy by like a hair. But yeah, I gravitated towards Mercy because I loved her movement, and I loved how she has that self-regen, so I didn't have to, like, rely so much on someone else. I could, pretty much fend for myself, and I liked that. And so I carried on playing Mercy, and I never really thought much about it because I was like, "Okay, this is the hero that I like to play, and this is what I like to do." And I for a while there, I definitely one-tricked her, although I will say that I see myself more as just maining her now, but preferably playing her if I can. but I am still good with other heroes now. And it's I used to shot call a lot. When I first started streaming, I would fill a lot of the dead air in with shot calling so that I was pretty much like always talking. And I barely shot call anymore. I might do it off stream on my main account, but I very, very rarely shot call that much anymore. And it's weird because that was something that I loved to do, but I kept getting people telling me like, I had to step away from your stream, the kind of things that like people were saying to you, like I couldn't take it, I couldn't listen to it. And like I couldn't. And so I started shot calling less and less so that there was less harassment directed at me. And it's really unfortunate because that was something that like I genuinely really loved doing. And so that ended up kind of feeling like it got taken away from me. And whenever you try to speak about it, harassment in any kind of form, whether it's someone slurring at you, whether it's someone making misogynistic comments like, where's your boyfriend? Or, you were boosted here by your boyfriend and now you're without him. And, like comments like that and harassment of that scope, you're not allowed to talk about it because if you talk about it and if you share it with other people, those people will see those clips and those things that you are trying to share so that you can talk about it and get that kind of conversation out in the open. They end up turning it on you and you are the problem because you were playing Mercy, and the people who were slurring at you or harassing you or whatever are not the problem because you didn't swap, so you were asking for it. And it's just this really weird and awful thought that you can't even share stuff like, to have those conversations because if you do, you've got a victim complex all of a sudden and you're making everything about you and you've got a problem and it's your fault and it's no one else's fault. And honestly, if you even bring up Mercy in general, and I've said this before, I could post something about Mercy on my Twitter. It could be anything. It could be positive, negative, it could be objectively true, it could be anything. And the replies that I get to it would be absolutely obscene. They would be awful. This community hates Mercy with every fiber of their being. It's just it boggles my mind. I can't wrap my head around it. It's so frustrating.
Not just Mercy, but women who play Mercy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you
Like,
want to go even more
yeah.
specifically.
Not like the one thing that I gotta say, getting harassed for being a woman is kind of new for me because on EU, no one did that. On EU, if people were toxic, they would like just, shout out a racial slur or two and then just leave voice. But like they actually never went into the fact that you're a woman. Maybe it's because we don't all speak English that well. I'm gonna be honest. It started when I went to NA, and I was kind of shocked because I thought like people would be friendlier over there. And I usually always shut the fuck up. Like I was like, okay, I don't want to get into trouble and stuff. But funny thing is, I started speaking up and like getting back at them. And funny enough, even though they were the ones who would start these things and like who would say really awful things, I was the one getting told to, oh my God, calm down, you're a bitch. Like suddenly they were the victims, and I was decimating them because I told them they're maidenless and the mamas don't love them, and like I'd fuck their dads and stuff. Like I don't fucking care. Like suddenly it was too much, but like slurring me and like calling me things was okay.
Well, you can even be as nice as you want to these people. You could barely say anything to them, or you could just be polite, and you would get told to relax or calm down, and you're the problem here. Like you could be just extremely nice to them, and it would still be your fault.
We truly are
Niandra,
misogyny.
Niandra, you've obviously you spoke about how people perceive your voice to be feminine, and you're from EU as well. Do you have anything you want to add?
Shit. I'm mostly just listening here. To be quite honest, I feel like I get less people being weird to me over my voice because my voice can be quite deep sometimes. And I think that kind of goes over people's heads, because I've definitely been in matches with people who are softer spoken than me, and I have noticed that like I will get ignored, but they will get targeted. And generally, when that happens, I like try to try to be on their side and try and back them up and stuff.
Really a compliment, but I wonder, how do you feel about the fact that I think your voice is also just perceived as like a radio-esque voice?
It's a compliment. Thank you.
I think that's adds to the perception of it.
That's true. I guess it's a perceived authority, right? So, whether
Yeah.
again subconsciously.
Yeah. I mean,
Which is why it's so
Yeah.
painful, because for I think did all three of you used to watch me back in the day?
I used to. I talked about your voice the other day to you in DMs as well.
Yeah. Niandra?
I think so.
Ski?
What happens if someone says flat out, "I hated you, Evie"? Despise your
it
content.
would be understandable.
I was honestly not really like in the Overwatch community until I started streaming myself in like 2018. So I think I caught a few of your streams here and there, but I mostly was off Twitch a lot until that time.
Okay, so I asked for context because I think Nyan, you two probably know how much I used to calm. I was the borderline nonstop calmer. I was shot calling, I was giving random tips to players of being like, seeing a tiny mistake, I would feel free to point it out. I would
Yep.
give people tips. I would help people learn their heroes while they're playing, even if they're a one trick. I know enough about the game to just say anything at any time, right?
Yeah, she
And
was
it's
the goddess,
one
the mercy goddess to the community, like quite literally. Like whatever she said, like people would soak it up, and it was like, yes, Evie, like she was just like the mercy player. Like Evie is the reason why I
yeah.
even started playing mercy. Like that is absolutely true. Like her word was her like the word in the mercy community.
Which also adds to that, then I was seen as the good mercy, right? So I'm familiar with not only the good mercy syndrome, as well as I was perceived as a man. So that added to it of like I was the mercy that was allowed to speak up. I was allowed to be the mercy to make decisive calls. I was allowed to the mercy to be like, someone's flaming somebody else, would be like, shut the fuck up, you're getting no picks, and then they would shut up. Like, that kind of thing of like, I'd be able to like defend people. I would be able to shot call. I'd be able to say anything I wanted. After I came out, it was just night and day. It wasn't just that I was being treated as a woman in some ways, but also obviously the transphobia and whatnot. But also just in general, it was basically I'm giving you the perspective of somebody who had the male privilege and lost it, is basically what I'm saying. I having that male privilege gone, it's like I knew it would be gone, but the contrast is so severe that I just don't really calm anymore. And that's actually like looping in back into value on mercy actually is a very important topic of I view skill and climbing on the ladder not as a singular value where everybody has different reasons why they climb. Somebody might have really good positioning but shit aim, but they're going to do better because of the person with good aim because they have better positioning and they don't die as much, right? They can continuously get value, right? Or the person who is really good at ult tracking. That's a huge thing in Overwatch where if you're just good at ult tracking, you'll probably gain 500 SR no matter your rank, right? And all these different aspects of like you can be good at different aspects of Overwatch. And for me, as much as I was good at being slippery and cunning and like knowing the different aspects of the game, my biggest thing was I'm right now I'm 3500. It's plus 1000 SR if I make comms. I'm dead ass. If I make comms, I'm plus 1000 SR because just communicating reliably, being able to be the eyes and ears of the team, being able to say, "Hey, this ult is about to happen." That's the kind of thing that made my gameplay what it was. And I was able to be the conductor of the team, is how I would put it. And that kind of stuff is just amplified not only and that was an aspect of a huge amount of my skill, but as well as that's an aspect I lost because of being perceived femininely. Like I can't count the amount of times that people have been transphobic to me or sexist to me or et cetera, et cetera. And the one time I've alt F4'd a game, was some dude saying, "Yeah, you need a blue beam me. I know you want to suck my cock," and like that kind of shit, and being completely demeaning. And I'm just like, I'm just not dealing with this. I'm alt F4ing. I feel bad for my other 4 teammates, but like, yeah, like I shouldn't have to deal with that. And so like that's like an example of like I've lost my opportunity to be as good as I can be because of who I am. And that's rough. And then looping this into something else of that's why I'm so excited for pinging. Pinging is going to offer so many minorities the offer to level the playing field in so many different ways. And so, I'm really excited for pinging, and I'm really excited in general to like put more effort into Overwatch. But it's just sad to think the reason why I'm not putting as much effort in is because of who I am. And it's because we don't have streamer mode. People just because I have nearly 100,000 followers doesn't then represent the amount of people that know me. The amount of people that are vaguely aware of EeveeA is probably over 1 million, and that's not to boast. That's just word of mouth. And so like that, the amount of times I get recognized is nearly every match, right? And so people play differently, teammates or enemies. And it's like the fact that we don't have streamer mode is another thing. It's like if we get streamer mode and pinging, it's like people anybody can more actively be themselves and more actively perform at their best without having to focus on it. But that's also amplified by the fact that Blizzard just does not moderate sexism as well as they should. And by that I mean I just genuinely don't feel like they do. And the problem is as well as like they are not at a scale where they're able to they're at a scale where they can't punish individuals really, right? And so what that happens is that somebody might be the most vile person ever to me, but that doesn't mean they're going to be the most vile person to everybody, right? And so they're not going to get banned. And so, I've had dozens of people be like, I say, "Hello, team. Let's get this," and then somebody will just be like, "Oh, there's a tranny," and leaves voice. That happened. That's happened dozens of times, right? And so we're in that situation where unless stuff like that can be addressed, I don't think we'll ever truly be at a point where we can get past this. But I think that streamer mode and ping are things that level the playing field a lot more and make it more viable for us to be able to play to our potential. And that's just like in summary of why it's so frustrating being in this situation that we're in, but we're always trying to make the most of it, frankly, not just because of the tools that we have as our character, but also because we always have to be as resourceful as we can be as queer people. That's just how it is.
It's
Yeah, you go
Oh.
first. Ski.
I was just gonna say it's so frustrating and upsetting permanently being at a disadvantage because of who you are. Like that when EeveeA was talking about that, that's something that very specifically resonates with me because, you know, either like for me, I'm female, I predominantly play Mercy, I stream, and I'm Skiesti. So a lot of people just don't like me and they play differently and they treat me differently. And it sucks that that is the reality that I end up having whenever I get into a comp match, and the reality that other people also have that as well. Like I got to the point where I can barely shot call like I used to, and that was something that really like was so fun for me as Mercy that I could use, this thing that the character was also so good for, and to be able to contribute like that. And because of so many variables, I can't do that anymore. And because of how me and other people get treated and how other people like play in our games, we don't ever get a fair shot anymore. Like it's so frustrating to have to work so hard to prove yourself all the time and to like even be able to just play the game at all when you have these things that you can't change about yourself that for some reason people are so against that they feel like they have to throw your games or to harass you or whatnot. And it's just it's so I don't even know the right word for it. I
Yeah.
want to say it's disheartening,
It's
but
like
it's just
soul
yeah.
crushing.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. It's soul crushing to
Yeah.
struggle to play the game you love, to play the hero you love, and to have that same fair shot that most other people have when they queue up on ladder, because I don't have that. And I know a lot of people here don't have that. And a lot of people in this community in general, whether you play Mercy or not, because of some reason or another, also don't have that opportunity. And it's soul crushing.
Yeah. I think from before what I said about EU and NA, I think something changed that wasn't there before, and that's why I wasn't getting harassed or anything in EU. I became a streamer when I went to NA. That 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 changed. Yes. I was known on EU ladder and like no one really cared. I was just a woman on ladder. Like it is what it is. But then I was a woman who was streaming and like finding decent success, you know. Now they can hate me for being a woman,
Yeah.
for playing Overwatch, for having decent success, you know? Like that's the thing that definitely changed. And it's always two extremes, I feel like. Like either I get like hypersexualized or someone in voice, like someone is like, oh, you have such a nice deep, you know, like the voice, or someone's like, oh, your voice is so deep and ugly, or like, oh, you're so ugly. Like either I'm like hypersexualized by them or like hyper like pointless.
Demeaned.
Like yeah, it's like so weird. Like and like I also feel like if you're a man and for example you're very quirky because you have ADHD. I got ADHD, so I'm very hyper sometimes on stream. I talk a lot. I say a lot of things. You know, I get confused. People go, "Oh my gosh, she's so annoying," and I'm like, "Why? Like, if your friend who has ADHD does that, it's okay. But if I do that, like, it's not. Like, why? Like, you know, like, why do you hate me so much for like not being able? Like, you know, I can't really control it. Like, it's just like I'm like, you know, like." It feels really like disheartening like like just shit, like honestly just shit. And that's why I started speaking up against it, because like to be honest, like I'm not even scared or like confused anymore about the things they say. Like if they start insulting people on my team or me, like I'll speak up. If they want to think I'm a bitch, they can think I'm a bitch. I'm gonna defend myself and the people on my team, because if you think you can open your mouth and be a disgusting human being in my team, no, like I'm gonna fuck your dad and become your stepmom, and I'll take your internet away.
Oh,
The worst part of this, though, as much as Somnus is fucking based as hell, I started speaking up for myself more in the recent time, and especially off stream. In 10 matches that I spoke up for myself, 4 of the matches, people just went AFK because I spoke up. So that's like the double-edged sword of speaking up is people just go AFK and be like, I see how it is, and then just go into spawn and stay there. And it's like, for me especially, I feel like it's a lose-lose.
Isn't
can't
that the
stand it.
reason why a lot of us are playing on alt accounts? Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me to play on my main account. I mean, I'll speak up on my main account too, but sadly, I feel safer on my main account playing with usually one of my male friends and bigger friends. Like if I play with Jay, if I play with Wanted, the same people who usually harass me when I'm alone shut the fuck up because they're
Yeah,
so
because they know
scared.
they'll be recorded
Exactly.
and
They know that
judged
it's
by their
yep,
peers.
yep. It's
also,
so
they
fucked
don't
up.
want to look bad in front of big streamers like J3 or
Which
Wanted or
which
Flats.
shows they
It
subconsciously
matters.
always know what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah. But they still do it.
Because they don't view you as a threat and they view you as an easy target. And yep.
Yeah.
And I
Don't
don't
forget
want to
its
cry
aim is
tonight.
sorting the balls.
Yeah. I think what a lot of people miss about the thing as well is because a lot of people will listen to this and be like, well, I get harassed too. But I think what a lot of people miss about that is that this is everything that a normal player gets harassed for plus this, right? I think that's what people miss is like, it is in many ways tragically the norm to just be flamed to shit every so often when you're playing a competitive FPS game. But the problem is that this is the additional layer. This is the sort of death by the 1,000 cuts that you guys have to go through, that female players have to go through, that anyone who basically is perceived to be a minority and can be identified has to go through. because it's like these, and you know, the counter arguments always come of like, well, you should just mute them, but it's exhausting, right? It's exhausting to have to fight it all the time, and all these additional challenges on top of the difficulty of the game, on top of your managing a million things, you're trying to climb, you're trying to improve. To have that additional thing is just a barrier. And again, part of what you were alluding to, EeveeA, about what makes it so much harder for then, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It makes it harder for women to be prominent when every time they are prominent, they're attacked or targeted.
I don't want to turn off my chat and my voice chat because I'm a woman. I want to play the game like everyone else does. I want to communicate and I want to write in chat without getting harassed for the kind of person I am, for who I am, quite literally. You know? Like, I deserve to play the game the same way other people play the game.
Yeah, it's been amazing turning off chat. Oh yeah, my past 2 weeks have been amazing. Turning off match chat, turning off team chat. Oh, it's been fucking great.
Yeah, I
I've
can't
never
play
been
with
better.
match chat or
Yeah,
team
I
chat
have
on
to turn
anymore
off
on my main
match
account.
chat. Like, I would love to, like, I would love to, like, keep match chat open because sometimes amidst, like, all these horrible people, there's someone who's like, oh my god, Somnus, hey, and I'm like, hi, how you doing? You know, like, nice people exist. But thanks to
Yeah.
this, I can't even filter out the nice people anymore because, unfortunately, the bad people often overwhelm the nice people. So I'm forced to be, like, in my little echo chamber of no match chat because, like, they're like, it's impossible. Like, I get so depressed and like so down on stream. Like, I stop my stream. Like, I can't work properly because the situation is like straining me so much that I can't carry on like entertaining people. I can't carry on like, you know, making myself play the game. Like, it's impossible. It's crazy.
And this is one of those things where, again, it compounds and becomes complex because people have often a negative view of people who don't participate in voice chat or team chat, right? Where some people will be like, well, if you're not, you're throwing, which is, again, or even one tricking, right? It's like it all is part of the nuance. It's like, well, I don't join voice chat because it, you know, this horrendous shit. And again, I one trick because when I switch a hero, I'm flamed for, you know, like, oh, you're a female player, you should be playing Mercy. I mean, I had it the other day. Like, I was silent. I wasn't saying anything. This is game in EU, and these, you know, this duo just thought they just, you know, took a problem with me, and they were like flaming me all game, and I was largely ignoring it. But then towards the end, they started to pull out, oh, you're an e-girl, aren't you? You're boosted, right? You should just go play. I was playing Ana. They were like, you should just go play Mercy. Pick Moira. Pick a character that can't aim. Just pick a just change right now. And obviously, I was just silent throughout all of this. But it's interesting that that's where they went, right? That was where. And again, it follows suit as well, because afterwards, the funny thing is they ended the game by telling the other team to report me for spamming the N-word. So they just straight up lied and weaponized the racism as well to try and get me reported, but which kind of tells you the kind of people who are doing this. But again, it's that idea of like these 1,000 cuts, right? And yeah.
Honestly,
It's someone did a test playing I can't remember if it was Valorant or Overwatch, but somebody
it was
played like
Valorant.
the
Yeah.
you know what I'm referring to? You want to say it?
Hmm?
Do you want to tell it?
No, I
Oh.
wanted to give that idea. I wanted to say like rename an account like into a fairly like feminine name and like play without talking and like just check out how many times you're gonna get, you know, like you're gonna meet this misogyny because you're gonna be surprised.
Yeah. So basically a dude, had a feminine name on an account and played for something like a week or something and was like, "Oh, see what experiences they get by not using voice." And it was just like the conclusion of just like him talking about experiences, and I'm just like, all the women in the room just being like, "Thank you for confirming what we've been telling you." And it's like, but you know what the sad thing is like while the women are thinking that, the men are like, "Oh my god, that's horrible," because they're actually listening to the man.
Yeah.
It's like,
Because when a girl talks about it, then she's the one at fault and it's her
she's
problem. But if a
bitching.
guy pretends to go under a female username and then publicizes what was said to them, then oh, everyone feels so sorry for him and it sucks that he had to go through that. But when it's, you know, an actual girl, no one cares. You can
Mind
basically just go screw yourself.
mind if I add that it has to be a cishet guy though? If it's a gay guy, it's a different story for them. Like for real. Like
Absolutely.
for real. Like it has to be a cishet guy because if it's a gay guy, you know, that they're gonna start calling him I don't know, probably homophobic slurs. Let's be real.
It do happen.
One thing for me that I find quite interesting is every piece of transphobia I've ever experienced is from people who think I'm a trans woman and not the AFAB
Don't worry.
non-binary.
Trans masks don't exist.
They really don't. But yeah, a few years ago, when I was doing like Mercy video guides, one of the things I really I mentioned constantly, I really homed in was this character is so good at shot calling. You have to shot call. If you're not shot calling, you're wasting Mercy, and it's something I just really really regret. And it really came from a place of someone who wasn't very experienced with like what voice chat is like in video games. And like, you know, if someone says to me now, oh, I don't want to use voice chat, it's like, yeah, I understand. And I
Yep,
think the
same.
stories that
Yeah.
you all are telling are they're important to hear, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, I think shot calling is important to Mercy as well. I think she's a great hero to do it with, but I also understand why so many people are turned off from it. And, you know, as I was saying earlier, like with myself, like I used to shot call all the time because Mercy's a great hero for it, but eventually I just stopped because like the responses, the kind of harassment that I would receive from it was just too much. It's
Mhm.
really unfortunate.
And the worst part is, well, not worst part, but another amplifying part is, some might say just like, oh, just play with a duo and have them like speak up for you. It's like, no. That's a detractor. If you're a duo, they'll just be like, oh, see, you two are duo, and immediately dismiss them. But if it's a random person who speaks up, then it's like, oh, okay, right? It's like it's almost like an instant nullification of what you say if you're duo. So it can't.
I don't know if you've seen that clip on my Twitter, but like I had a day where like for some reason I met these really weird people who were like really misogynistic, but they got shut down because my entire fucking team went into voice and started laughing at them. Like for real. Like my entire team went into voice. Like I have it on my Twitter somewhere. It was a couple weeks ago, and they started laughing at them. Like, you shut the fuck up. You had nothing to say after making that fucking joke. You're so like, I think they called him virgin. And I was like, well, and that guy was like, he left voice. He was not having it. He was like, okay, I guess I can't attack this woman then, like since everyone's laughing at me.
That's such a rare occurrence.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
That's why I clipped it, because I was like, see, like you can, like he was just shut down and like left voice, and that's it. That's the story of that misogynist.
I get defended 10 times more from women than men. And then they're opening themselves up for being attacked.
Yeah.
Men almost never defend me.
I mean, I don't care if I defend someone and they attack me. I feel like I've done something good, because like at least that person had someone with them, you know? Because I understand how it feels like to be in a team and like get harassed by like a duo or like by a guy like the entire game. Like I'll speak up either way, but like it's just sad to see. And also like Evie, I feel like you getting defended by women more. I feel like this comes back to like the selective misogyny thing, you know? Like I feel like men are more like, I don't know, like I feel like men don't defend me as much if they don't feel attracted to me. Like
No, 100%.
like for
No,
real.
I
Like
mean,
they just don't defend me. But like if they like my voice, or like if they've been like kind of, you know, a little flirty or something, like they behave completely different, and I think it's disgusting. Like
Yep,
like just
100%.
that concept.
It's a very real phenomenon, and the extreme example of that is if, say, a white trans attractive woman is speaking about trans rights, then it's great. But if, say, a black early transition woman is talking about trans rights, then she's going to get the brunt of across the board, right? So it's like your rights are important only as if you're attractive. But that, you know, that's the extreme example in this scenario. But yeah, it's a very common phenomenon. Your perceived value of your attractiveness and whether or not they want to keep putting you down, or if they see you as above. So easy target versus not.
Well, I think you're all beautiful. Even you, SVB. I'm kidding.
Even you, I appreciate that. The even you.
You're all amazing. Like, is a great discussion.
Yeah, I mean, usually in this podcast, when we have like sometimes a discussion that gets very negative, I always try to like color it at the end where I'm like, okay guys, well, what about solutions? Like, how can we, we'll be ranting about XYZ for 10 hours, like ranting about Brig or tanks or whatever, and then I'll be like, well, what's the solution, guys? What do we change? I shy away from doing that here because there is no solution. There's no like, oh well, let's just do this and that's everything is fine now, because as we alluded to, this is a much deeper problem than
It is
Overwatch.
rooted into a
Yeah, it's societal
This is
society.
a
wide.
podcast where thousands of people listen. Speak up.
Like-
Be mindful.
Well, that's what I wanted to
Be-
ask,
be
is that what would
empathetic.
you like from the community? Like, what would you like the community to do more? Or maybe Blizzard, you said streamer mode. What could help?
Do better. Stop harassing people. It's not that hard to not
It's a
attack
video
someone.
game.
It's like, I get that it's probably rooted in every fiber of your being, but hey, the thing that you learned in kindergarten, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. Just stop talking. And if you can't hold yourself accountable like that, remove the problem. Like, completely make sure that your mic is off. Make it so that your mic doesn't get inputted so that you can literally like unbind your push to talk or whatever. I don't care. Just don't harass people. Do better. And if someone is getting harassed, speak up for them. Or if someone's getting like, I don't know, it's so frustrating because whenever you share this kind of harassment, people will like take these, this one idea and latch onto it and make it your fault. And it's like, just do better. Learn not to say slurs. Learn not to harass people. Learn not to be misogynistic. Like, just treat people like human beings. You wouldn't go outside and do it, so why are you doing it here? Like, you're weird. Stop.
I feel like people are online so much now, especially like during like COVID, where like they didn't go outside. Like they're so desensitized to like people on the internet, and to them like we're just numbers on the screens, numbers and avatars. Like they don't actually see us as humans, especially if they're like, as I said before, like if they don't have an emotional or sexual connection to you, like you're just not a human to them. Like you're just not. Like that's what it feels like, literally. And like I don't know if it's a lack of empathy or like just other things, but like it's crazy to me that like someone can be disheartened towards another human being. Like I understand, like I get mad too, and I like, I'll call my team dog shit or something, but like I would never go out of my way and start slurring someone for like it's like just doesn't go into my head. Like I don't know, like if it's lack of empathy, if it's education, it is definitely like a society problem. Like it's not just in video games. I mean, this happened IRL, like this happens IRL as well, but especially like on the internet where like they don't have a face to the avatar. You become a number and just an avatar, not a human, and it becomes worse, I feel like. And it's anonymous, obviously.
Niandra, do you have anything to add before I take to Evie?
No, just agreement, really. It's sad.
For once, I don't have much to say. I mean, I could always talk more, but it's like the relative value of just like, yeah, that covers the bases.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, from whatever piece I can add, I think it's a lot about like making certain things unacceptable, which is what I always lament when someone casually drops the N-word in match chat, says that to me or whatever. But it's like, I mean, I kind of, you guys know, because I already ranted about this in the Content Creator Discord, but it's like, you can drop the N-word unfiltered in match chat in Blizzard, and it's like, why?
Easy.
Yeah, but not GG Easy though, because that would be beyond the pale. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's reason for someone to drop the N-word, but GG Easy is unacceptable here at Blizzard headquarters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, go ahead, Somnus.
I had a conversation with Evie about this, and like she mentioned something that I find insane. Did you know that the default settings on your BattleNet is that it shows your real name? So even if they go around like using the N-word as their username, like I got a friend request sent from someone whose real name was put in as the N-word, but like his username was different. So when I opened it, it just showed in like exclamation marks, like kind of, just the N-word, like over and over again, like as the first and last name. And I was shocked that this was even allowed. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's Blizzard Real ID, BNet. on both on the launcher and in games. Real ID is a default setting where you can send friend request as username or send friend request as username plus real name. And in fact, a prominent example of this being an absolute fuck up was Moon had his real name linked when Black Ops 4 came out, where he posted some random taunt to an enemy team, an enemy player in text, and the instant he pressed enter, his real name showed up in chat. For him, of course. But yeah, it's just an example of like why the absolute ever living fuck is real names ever in a video game. Get it
Yeah.
the fuck out. And it's just like, what is this, a management issue? Literally anybody with a brain can see that real ID should not be a thing in video games. Stop. It's for the casual players of like, oh, it's so and so. Ooh, ooh. It should be opt-in. Flat out.
By the way, when we talk about slurs, this shouldn't even have to be said, but yes, that does include the R word for all of the people that have been going around
True.
in response to like if you share that someone calls you the R word and then everyone being like, "Oh, that's fine," or like justifying it somehow, like, "No, that's a slur. You can't say that." I literally saw a tweet where someone was like, "When did the thing that we call our friends become a slur?" What it why are you
It's
calling
okay
your
in your
friends
friends, right?
that?
Well, I mean, it's
Yes.
it's a lack of awareness and lack of understanding of what being like retardation, what it is, and
Yes.
how much it impacts people. And to them, it's like saying just the equivalent of stupid. And frankly, to me, that was the same. 6 years ago, I was using it. I
Yep.
didn't use it against people as like a insult. I used it as a well, this is this, right? Like I said it as like a circumstance almost, right? But that was me knowing it was bad enough to not use against people. I knew better. But when I had it explained to me, it was just like, oh, okay, all right, that makes sense, and I stopped. And it's one of those things where like people just need to understand. It's like having using retarded in relation to just casual. You can fully acknowledge that you're using it in a negative way, and it is associated with retardation. Understanding that it is associated with that normalizes the fact that you are using a name, a derogatory name, or a medical condition as a casual insult. Which, frankly, if we want to go a little bit SJW, so is saying that's so cancerous or that's cancer. Like,
I hate it when people
frankly,
say that.
that's included, and it's just an example of using a medical condition as an insult, right? And it's
When
just like,
people call people autistic, when people like I used to say that's AIDS, like like
It's
yeah,
just so normalized on the
yeah,
internet, like ableist terms.
yep.
It's gotten a bit better in recent years, but like if you were online in like the early 2000s, the mid 2000s, late 2000s, like it was just everywhere, because I think of websites like 4chan and stuff
yeah,
like that just really
get into
normalized it.
I was in the
I mean,
same boat as Evie. Like, before someone explained it to me, retard was like calling someone stupid. I was like, oh, like I would call my friends that, like they would call me that, and it was to us like it was just a very normal thing. And then someone finally came up to me and was like, hey, I don't think you should use it anymore. And simple said, like once they explained it to me, I was like, okay, the usage of the word I've been using my entire life is hurting certain people. So what I will do now is just take it out of my vocabulary. It's not that hard.
Yep. Or
yeah,
then
I
Rico's
Not
think
that
gone.
hard. Like it's okay. Like I say it so often on stream. Like it's completely okay to be uneducated and like ignorant if you're open to changing that. You know, like I was uneducated and ignorant, like for sure, and I got educated a lot in the past 2 years by several people, and like it doesn't make you a horrible human being because you're like ignorant, but being open to changing that ignorance is what will make you a very good human being.
And
I
that's
don't
what I
know.
would
Like
piggyback off. Oh, go ahead, Skies.
I was gonna say, like I also grew up, you know, online, but I was never like I don't know, I never ran into communities or websites like that use that kind of terminology. And growing up, you know, my parents always made sure that like, hey, this kind of stuff is not okay to say. So like personally, I refrain from those kinds of terms, and and when they're directed at me, like, I know that, hey, that's not okay and that's messed up. But I think that whenever you try to share, like, when, that, like, the R word, that, like, that is a slur. And whenever you try to share that kind of thing, most people are not willing to, like, open to understanding that that's not an okay thing to say. And it's a serious problem in the Overwatch community that people don't think that it's a problem, and that they just want to remain completely ignorant, and they are not open to learning and not open to changing their vocabulary, even though it's definitively not okay. But it's this whole circle of, like, people as far as in any rank, so from bronze all the way up to the highest of high, top 500, or even people in, like, content creators or contenders players or Overwatch League players, perpetuating this circle that it's okay to slur. Like, some small example was a little while ago on the Overwatch League stream, they do those comms checks, right? And so you can listen into, like, what the team was saying. And someone on one of the teams dropped a slur, the R word, right? And someone on Twitter was like, "Hey, Overwatch League, you should really check your comms to make sure that slurs aren't allowed in. Like, this shouldn't be a thing that's happening." And it did, so why? And the overwhelming response were people calling the person that posted it the R word, or saying, like, really sarcastically, "Oh no, that's horrible. I can't believe they do that." Or people completely memeing off this person that made the tweet. And it's so outrageous that, I'm sorry, that this community has just grown to say that this word is accepted and it's fine and it's not harassment. And
Oh,
to
you
me,
got him.
because, oh, sorry.
You went Robo for a
But-
sec. Carry on.
Yeah, sorry. It's just mind-boggling to me that that is considered okay. Like, it's not. And I think this community needs to be more open to learning that terms like that are not okay.
I mean, I think it's amplified by especially a game like Overwatch. It just seems like it's been out for a while, everybody. It's been out for a while. People have grown up playing this game. These communities form and these cliques. It's just that, frankly, I mean, I feel like just Overwatch especially, these communities form and they're just like, their influence around them is the people who are also fine with it. And these communities are just, we underestimate how much Overwatch, like, again, any game or system that can facilitate a community will happen, but Overwatch especially, it seems, and like the console community, for example, it's very insulated in its own way of, they've been growing up for years playing the same game and the same people. They're going to form cliques that all, the edgy humor, as Tesla put it, it just snowballs, and it's just like, truly touch grass.
And the other argument I feel people bring up a lot is like, well, back in my day, you wouldn't have survived in the lobby of, insert X older game
I hate
here.
it when people
It
do
is
that.
not
And
back in your days anymore, though.
Well, the thing is, like, everything is relative. Like, hopefully we want society to get better, right? So, like, 50 years ago, someone would be like, well, we didn't have phones in my time. Well, isn't it great that we have them now? It's like 1,000 years ago, well, we didn't have rights in my time. We were all peasants. Well, isn't it great that we aren't now? And I feel like it's just a very reductive argument. People are like, in my day, we got called all kinds of stuff. Well, isn't it great that we live in a world where you don't get called stuff so often? And can we not aspire to a world where you get called stuff less often? Like, it's kind of like that you participate in society and yet you want to improve it meme, right? Where it's like, we can, we've lived through some bad times. We can try and be better, right? So, and other thing I want to add is that I think that you were really right, Somnus, when you said that people feel like very personally attacked. I think when you try and bring up these issues is like people feel like you're implicating them as a horrible person. And I think that that's like, there's like levels to it, right? There's
called a bitch for like defending myself and like telling them to like stop with that. Yeah, it's like well, why do I become a bitch when I say something? Like the fact that they're getting so defensive about it.
SVB was referring to when someone is called out for saying something and then them getting defensive.
Oh
about-
Yeah, I meant like when you know, you say like, let's not use the R word, guys. The people who use it, I think, you know, they feel very defensive, and I think there's like, you know, levels to it, where there's the people who would drop the slur, you know, just without a bat of an eyelid in your regular match chat or in voice chat. They're kind of beyond saving, I think. I think they're, you know, like, they've got their own issues. I don't think there's any reaching them via an internet discourse. That's for them to figure out. But there's the people who would kind of use it obliviously, I would say, right? Like, who are like, it's like Niandra was saying, it's just casual part of their conversation, it's part of their linguistics that they haven't even clocked on that it's like malicious. And I think I think that's most of the people who use it. I think there's comparatively fewer people who are like actively trying to be malicious with it. It's mostly just unconscious usage, repeated and regurgitated based on what you heard. And for those people, I think it's really important, because you're the people who will make a difference. Like, I think you're the people who can actually change your behavior enough for it to be a tangible difference in what people notice in their experiences, right? And I think that it's very important, and if I could summarize what's being said in all of this, it's like, it's really important, I think, to always check your bias, check your privilege, check that you didn't just, you know, you're not falling into a behavior that isn't cool. And I don't think that makes you a worse person for doing so, right? I don't think it becomes, in fact, I would have more respect for someone like that, because they're willing to self-assess and, you know, be humble. Because we all make, like, I don't think a single one of us on the call who hasn't had like a view that they regret, right? Let he without sin cast the first stone. Like, none of us are perfect, none of us have always had the perfect ideology, but that's exactly why it's important to stop at some point and say, well, what I'm saying, is it bad, is it wrong? Like, am I saying something that's hurting other people? And as Skiesti said, it doesn't cost anything to be nice, so just try and be a nicer person. Like, that can't be too much to ask.
You know, SVB, there's one issue that I have with that, but it's just a personal issue. I do that a lot. Like, I assess myself because I don't like the kind of person I was years ago. And every time I think about me being so ignorant and uneducated, I start blaming myself and like really fall into this like, I'm a really horrible person pattern, and like start believing it, and it's like really bad. I mean, yeah, I have a huge issue with that. Like, I think I talked to Overwatch Grandma and EeveeA a lot about that. Like, I've spammed them with like big messages. I'm like, I feel like a horrific person, like who I was in the past. And they're like, yeah, but look at you now, you know. And it's really hard for me. And I feel like that is why so many people don't want to be educated, because they're so scared of like facing the fact that they have been hurtful and that they have been ignorant and uneducated, and they feel like it just automatically makes them a bad person. It's really hard to like accept that you haven't been always right, or like you haven't been always a good like up, like, you know, like up to that standards that you are now. And like, yeah.
Well, you know, if I can, you view it in a negative way. You're looking back at all the bad things you say. I would look at it the other way. I'd say, look at the growth that you've shown. Like, look at what you used to be and look at where you are now. Is that not the mark of a, you know, remarkable person, to change and grow? Like, again, I would, the least respect I would have for anyone is someone who doesn't change and doesn't grow. I have nothing but respect for anyone who's willing to look at themselves and change and grow for the better. And I think that's what, I hope that's how you would view it. Like, look at where you've come. You know, look at the gap of where you come. Don't look at where you were. Look at the gap that you've created between that self and you.
Yeah, it's just, I'm just trying to like sympathize with them a little, because I can understand why they would like, you know, be very defensive to getting educated. Like, be like it is hard to like, you know, like accept like you have been hurtful, you have been ignorant, you have been uneducated, you know, all these things, but it doesn't make you a bad person. Like, you can like change all those things, like even in your 20s, even in your 30s. Like fuck, my mom like, my mom is really old. I mean, not that old, but like my mom, you know, she said some things and I was like, Mom, that's kind of racist, you know. She was like, is it? And like she was like, she sat down with me, she was like, can you explain? And I explained, and she was like, okay, you know, you're right. And you know, even in her 50s, she stopped doing what she was doing, and that's okay. She changed that. You can always change.
Absolutely. Props to your mom, because that takes real character to take that age and still be willing to look at yourself, right? So shout out Somnus's mom. All right. I mean, I know I've taken a lot of you guys' time. I know it's kind of probably been quite exhausting for you, and emotionally, both physically and emotionally. So, if you're all right, I'd like to bring you back to Mercy. I just kind of, as a concluding thought, just ask what you guys kind of see, unless there's anything else you want to add on the previous topic. Just kind of your concluding thoughts, what you're hoping for, with Mercy's future. Obviously, they experimented with the super jump. Is there anything that you're kind of hoping to see in the next beta or just in the near-ish future for Mercy?
Give Mercy 2 pistols.
Oh, jeez.
Skiesti, go ahead.
I think for me, when the beta first came out, I was a little bit worried that they weren't looking at Mercy at all. But even though the super jump change came at, near the very end of it, it was very nice to see that they actually were looking at Mercy and that she is on their radar and that they also feel like she is not in such a great spot right now. So I'm just looking forward to seeing the kind of solutions that they end up coming up with for her. I would definitely like to see more work done on the new super jump ability going forward, but yeah, I'm just glad that they're actually looking at her finally.
Awesome. Niandra?
I mean, to briefly go back to the last conversation, I think like a lot of people just kind of see everything as a joke, and that there's never really real life consequences for the people who, say that sort of stuff. Like no one's ever going to shout at them on the streets, and because of that, they just kind of lack empathy and such. But for Mercy, I feel like there's two ways they can go with her, and the first is just various small changes, and then the second is a complete rework. And I think I want to see various small changes first to see if she works better in 5v5 that way before taking more drastic measures. And yeah, we've given like a lot of small things tonight that I would like to see for the second beta.
And EeveeA, take us home.
I think I'm looking forward to seemingly Overwatch 2's beta 2 will be a much larger focus on supports, where I think that the first beta was more of a technical beta along with a more focus on the tank lineup. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I'm more interested in seeing all the changes to other supports first, and then balancing Mercy accordingly to their overall power level. And I think that there's still potential for what we have now to shine it up a bit per se. I think current Mercy can shine with a bit more love and buffing out some of the weak points, or rebalancing accordingly, and giving some more smaller love points. But yeah, I would like to see just a potential full rework if once we're getting into like after third beta, if we still don't feel right. I definitely am fully behind the potential of a full rework, but we'll see.
Nice. And actually, Somnus, do you have like a non-akimbo pistol Mercy suggestion that you wanted to bring up? Because that might have been a tongue-in-cheek one.
I'm just gonna be honest, like I'm just kind of winging it, like whatever change they bring, I'm like, okay, like I mean, I'll try it out, like as long as I can keep up like the aggressive playstyle, I'm just like, like some quality of life changes would be great. They should look at Superjump, like they should delete one of the ways to Superjump, and maybe look at res. But other than that, I'm just honestly kind of winging it. And one would say I'm big chilling. I'm just excited to like get off of Overwatch 1 and play Overwatch 2 again.
Amen to that. I think we can all agree with that, or most of us. I'm sure there's always the thing about saying on the internet, all is never an accurate term. There's always someone in chat who's like, no. But I am very, very grateful for you guys' time. Thank you so much for what has been flown by 3.5 hours. Wow. So it has been a marathon. And again, I think it speaks to Mercy that I still feel like there was so much we didn't cover and so much we could have done and said that we didn't. But it just shows you why this hero is perhaps so special, unique, so so much to talk about in the Overwatch community. But as always, guys, thank you very much to EeveeA, Niandra, Skiesti, and Somnus for joining me. Please do check them out. If you guys are listening to this later, which is probably the majority of you listening to this on YouTube, on podcast services, then their links will be in the video description. So please do check out all their stuff. And guys, thank you so much. Anything else you want to say before we peace out?
You're all amazing. Evie, you looked really cute today, by the way, especially when you were kissing your cat. I was like, aw.
I love your cat. The cat is so good.
He's
The
very
cat was an
I saw
important part of
one
the
of your
discussion.
It really
cats.
was.
I saw your second cat going like between the PCs at one point. That was really cute. Like
Mhm.
standing on top of the PCs. But also, thank you, SVB, for having all of us here today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure to do it. Thank you guys. Have a good rest of your day, whatever time you're coming at this from. See you guys soon.